Good evening and welcome to the June 22nd, 2026 City Council Special Meeting. Thank you for joining us. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy.
Here.
Councilmember Watton.
Here.
Councilmember Holloway. Councilmember Washington. Councilmember Cotton.
Present.
Councilmember Testman.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
The roll is complete. We have a quorum.
Councilmember Holloway and Councilmember Washington are not present. Is there a motion to excuse their absence from tonight's special meeting?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Murphy. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Johnson.
Both have indicated that they will be just late tonight, but they are intending to be here.
See no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Councilmember Holloway and Washington are unanimously excused and may join late. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Murphy. Is there any discussion of the agenda for the special meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The agenda is unanimously approved. First item on the special meeting agenda is an executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters related to agency enforcement actions and other items under 1I. We will now go into executive session, and we will be back at 6:10 and resume our meeting at 6:15. Okay, we're back from executive session. It is 6:15. The next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Puget Sound Regional Council Executive Director Josh Brown. And here with him tonight is also David Dixon. And so this is at our invitation and just a fantastic opportunity to hear straight from the executive director about broadly what's going on PSRC that leads to kind of the housing and transportation issues that they're focused on and that then get pushed down for us to deal with, at least our portion of it at the city. And so I think he's planning on a presentation of about 20 minutes to half an hour and then Q&A with you for another 15, 20 minutes beyond that. And so with that, thank you very much for being here, Mr. Brown, and welcome.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor. I'm Josh Brown, Executive Director of the Puget Sound Regional Council, for the record. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and brief the City Council. First, I wanted to start off by saying thank you for the work that you do, the long hours you put in. I was having a conversation with a few of you. I know how busy you are, both with your day jobs, your families, and all your commitments with the city. I'm a recovering elected official myself. So I served 7 years as a county commissioner over in Kitsap County. So can definitely relate, and just am grateful for the hard work that you do to move your community forward. As the mayor previewed, he asked me to come and provide some insights, overview, regional data, maybe a little background information on growth, housing challenges, affordability challenges that we are seeing in the Puget Sound region. We've been a fast-growing region for a long time. That growth has put a lot of pressure on our communities, and of course, for all of our member governments, Snoqualmie among them, the tough challenges of how do we plan for growth, how do we plan for the infrastructure, how do we pay for it, how do we balance quality of life with the challenges that growth brings. That's, I think, the big issue that we hear. And we host, and Mayor, you've been there, our new elected workshop every couple years. And what I've seen really transform over the past couple years that we've hosted that new elected workshop at PSRC is growth and affordability. Starting a couple years ago, really became the major issue on everyone's minds in terms of running for office, getting involved in politics, what those trade-offs are. I think we saw a new issue emerge when we hosted that workshop in February, along with growth, housing, affordability. We also saw budget challenges. So I know you're really, faced with a lot of those, big challenges here at City Hall. So I thought I'd start just to level set and for both members of the council and the public. So Puget Sound Regional Council, that's my organization. We're a regional planning agency. So when we talk about the region, we're talking about King, Pierce, Snohomish, and Kitsap counties. I'm from Kitsap County. I grew up in Poulsbo as a kid. We moved to town right when it hit 3,000 residents. Some people blamed us for hitting 3,000. We were a Navy family. I represented the Silverdale, Bremerton, Seabeck area when I was a member of the county commission. But 82 cities and towns in the region, along with our 4 counties. And I think one of the things that makes us really unique, and of course, we really can appreciate this on the drive to your community today, is of our 6,300 square miles in the entire 4-county region, only about 1,000 square miles is our urban footprint. Of course, those Cascade Mountains take up a lot of the footprint of our counties, particularly King, Snohomish, and Pierce counties. And our counties are so diverse. I shared a little bit about my background, being a Navy family. My dad was a pipe fitter at the shipyard. A little different economic driver in East King County, right? With the tech influence and let alone Costco and so many other, amazing companies. But each of our counties are diverse. And I think one of the things we're always trying to make sure that we pay attention to is the fact that we have 4 counties that are very different with different challenges, different histories, and we have to be reflective of that diversity in our growth. I thought I'd take us back in time because growth has been something we've been wrestling with as a region for a while. Let's go back to 1960. I'm not going to ask who was here in 1960. I get into trouble with that. But 1960 is a good year to start because this was, of course, 2 years before we welcomed the world to Seattle to host our Century 21 exposition, the World's Fair. And I think that's really appropriate with our region hosting FIFA, being part of that amazing international celebration and competition, to kind of think back to 1960. You see, the skyline of Seattle was a little bit different. Seattle was about 560,000 residents. Our entire region was about 1.5 million. So the city of Seattle was 1/3 of the region's total population. And one of the things that I think is appropriate to also think about is back then, the state of Iowa had roughly the same population as the state of Washington. So when you think of Washington State today, we think of a dynamic place, companies that are known across the world. Everybody knows our Seahawks won the Super Bowl, happy to host the FIFA World Cup. Our region was a little different place back then. A lot of folks would struggle to pronounce Seattle appropriately, right? And we were kind of that state that was the last stop on the way up to Alaska. Things have really changed. And when you look at the next 30 years of growth, we saw profound growth in the region. Our region's population nearly doubled, but something almost mathematically impossible happened at the same time. While the region's population grew from 1.5 to 2.75 million people, our largest city, Seattle, lost population. So think of that just from an infrastructure standpoint. Think about that in terms of planning for growth, getting prepared for growth. Do we think growing from 1960 to 1990, nearly doubling in population, do we think we did a great job planning and getting ready for growth? The report card was pretty negative from the public. And the report card from the public was that all of us in local government, city, county level, state leadership, we needed to do a better job of getting our act together to get prepared for growth, make sure that we have plans in place to be able to plan accordingly. And most importantly, I think, as a connection with that, making sure we have the infrastructure in the right places. Our agency, the Puget Sound Regional Council, was actually reorganized from the Puget Sound Council of Governments in 1991. This was a year after the Growth Management Act was adopted at the state level. And I really point to 1990, 1991 as the time where we began to really roll up our sleeves collectively in our region to recognize we needed to get more effective at planning for growth, coordinating growth, and making sure we have infrastructure in the right places. You see a lot of those leaders from the early 90s, a couple of my predecessors, Mary McCumber and Bob Jewell, who are at the forefront of that early planning work in the 90s. Vision 2050, and David's going to get into a lot of the housing elements of Vision 2050 and some of the things that we're working on, is really our North Star. We come together once a decade in a collaborative framework to have all the cities, the counties, our transit partners, our tribes, our ports, collaborate to figure out how do we plan for growth? How do we make sure we have infrastructure in the right places? Where should most of the growth go? My dad, who I mentioned is a pipe fitter, the way that I would describe Vision 2050 to him is really in short, Vision 2050, we're looking to the largest cities in the region to accommodate the highest percentage of the growth. And we're trying to put infrastructure in those largest cities, oftentimes transit, to be able to ensure that that growth is done well. And a good example of that, we're going to talk about the city of Seattle in terms of how that growth trajectory has changed. But the reason why we're doing that in Vision 2050 is the idea is to have less growth in smaller cities and towns. Think about where I'm from in Paulsbo. Paulsbo is not going to grow as much as Bremerton, which is the largest city in our county. That's by design to keep that character. And then also to take pressures off our rural lands, our open space, our agricultural lands, which are so vital and important to the region. We continue to plan for growth in the region. And the reason why we plan for growth and we have forecasts of how many residents we think will be in the region between now and 2050 is because our region continues to grow jobs and attract people to call this place a desirable place where they want to be. Our forecast right now is for our region to grow from 4.5 million to 5.8 million residents by 2050. Now, we actually went back in time before we adopted this growth forecast of 5.8 million. We went back and took a look in 2020 when we had the census, the first time we ever had a 2020 growth forecast for the region. The first time we forecasted what the region's population would be in 2020 was way back in 1988. I was in second grade, I think. And our growth forecast for the region was about 4.1 million residents. And we ended up right around 4.1 million residents. So when we've gone back and looked at, because a fair question to ask us as regional planners is, Josh and PSRC, 5.8 million residents, are you sure? What I'm comfortable sharing with the public and with policymakers, as you all are, is we think 5.8 is a really reliable number to look out for 30 years. Could it be 5.7 million? Could it be 5.9? Absolutely. That's about kind of the bandwidth of the high or low that I think we could reasonably estimate today. We don't think the region's going to grow from 4.5 million to only 5. And we don't think the region's going to grow to 7 million, right? We think 5.8 for looking that far out is an appropriate number. And then what we always are doing at PSRC is updating this forecast to see if we're tracking. And actually, if you take a step back and look at historically our population trends, they've been remarkably consistent over the last 40 years. So we think that that's a good number for the region to be planning from. And I talked a little bit about our regional growth strategy, asking that first bullet I put an exclamation point on, asking our largest cities in the region to accommodate the highest percentage of growth. The other thing that we did when we adopted Vision 2050 is, as you all are aware, we're investing a lot of the public's money in transit investments of all types. I know light rail gets, kind of the lion's share of the attention, but we're investing a lot in new bus rapid transit corridors. We've invested in ferry expansions. Where I'm from in Kitsap County, we have passenger-only ferry routes that are connecting to downtown Seattle that didn't exist 10 years ago. We have heavy rail investments that are planned or underway. So for the first time, what we did was we set a target, a goal for the region to accommodate 65% of the region's population and 75% of our jobs within these high-capacity transit corridors and stations. The idea is the places that are benefiting from a lot of this investment, the billions of dollars that we're putting into transit, we're going to ask those communities to do more of the heavy lifting to plan for growth. And this is what that looks like. So on the left is a map of our regional growth centers. I don't want to go too deep in the weeds of urban planning with all of you, but what we do is we've worked with cities and counties throughout the region to identify places where communities are supportive of more growth. Those communities come to our agency and worked through an agreed upon process to be identified as regional growth centers. There are places like downtown Seattle, South Lake Union, places like downtown Bellevue. Issaquah came to our community a few years ago and asked to be identified as one of our regional centers. That's the map on the left, places where we're growing where we're planning for the highest percentage of growth. And then what you see on the right are the same dots, but connected with our high capacity transit stations and corridors. I hope what you can see is that the maps are superimposed on each other pretty closely. That's intentional. Again, what we're trying to do is put most of the growth in the region in the communities that are planning for them for that future transit investments and that capacity. You'll notice your community is not superimposed on that map, right? So you're not one of our regional growth centers. I know your community, North Bend, Incarnation, Duval, would like more transit service. I get you. I don't think it's part of your agenda to maybe have light rail come out here yet. We're struggling to get it to the places we want to go. But, you know, Issaquah is a good example of a community that I think really wanted to be able to be on the list of communities that would eventually get a light rail connection. And part of the agreement to get there over time was you need to be able to plan for more growth in your downtown core. So that's kind of a recent history of some of those connections and trade-offs and balances that we're trying to get right. And I'm not saying everything is perfect everywhere, but just from a construct of how we're trying to connect land use and transportation, I hope that gives a good impression. The other thing I wanted to share is how our region's growing differently since we started to be much more intentional about planning for growth in the region, since we adopted the Growth Management Act. If you go back to 1991, the year our organization, PSRC, was established, we were in the early days of implementing the Growth Management Act. About 30% of the growth in the region was happening in our unincorporated areas. So we moved to the region in 1994, and the first couple of houses we lived in Kitsap County were all in rural subdivisions, literally rural, out in the forest subdivisions where somebody put 40, 50 houses up. Everybody was on a septic. Everybody had a well or community water. There were no sidewalks in place. And right when you got out of your subdivision, you're out on 2-lane county roads. That's where I grew up. That was a lot of the built environment in Kitsap County for a long time. Lots of portions of King County and Snohomish and Pierce County are that way as well. That's that 30% of growth that was taking place in 1991. Rural subdivisions where you could go down and just kind of build anything where you wanted. Now that we've established our urban growth boundary in the early 1990s and implemented the Growth Management Act, now about 97% of the growth that's happening in our region is happening in our cities and in our urban growth boundaries. Here in King County, virtually all the growth is happening in our cities and urban growth boundaries. The other 3 counties are not as far along. There's good reasons why that's the case, but each community has been moving in this direction of most of that growth happening in that urban footprint. And this is, I think, an important trend of how our growth trajectory has really been reshaped in our region. We talked about how the city of Seattle lost population between 1960 and 1990. Since 1990, the city of Seattle, in its same footprint, because Seattle's not Houston or Phoenix, it can't just continue to annex. Well, it can annex a little bit out, but you know, it's a city that's somewhat static in its boundary. It's added 300,000 residents in the city limits of Seattle. The region continues to grow, and the region's growing just as robustly as it was growing from 1960 to 1990. But this gives you, I think, a really clear example of when we work together and we set priorities of where growth should go, we develop alignment on policies, we think about where infrastructure should go. This gives you an example that if we choose to kind of change the trajectory of how and where we grow, together, working together and collaboratively, we can change that trajectory. And I always like to compare Seattle to a couple other cities that are on waterfronts that can't expand out, Boston and San Francisco. All 3 cities have remarkably similar trajectories from 1960 to 1990. Each city lost population. And from 1990 to the present, both Boston and San Francisco have have added population. But look at the ratio. Both Boston and San Francisco have added about 100,000 people since 1990. Seattle's added 300,000 people. And what I would, project, and one of the things I've been sharing is, my prediction is by the end of this decade that Seattle will certainly be a larger city by population than San Francisco. That's the trend lines that we've seen. So again, the picture I want to paint is this regional planning work we do, the collaborative framework of figuring out how we plan for growth, where it should go. By working together, we can really shape what this region looks like in a collaborative fashion. So with that, that's a broad overview of the region. I thought I would leave all the really tough details to my colleague, David Dixon, who's going to talk a little bit about Vision 2050. David's a planner in our growth management team, and then we're both happy to take questions and have dialogue with all of you. David?
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Thanks again. David Dixon. I'm on our growth management team, and part of what we do as an agency and as my team is work with mostly the staff planners at cities and counties throughout the region. We have done a lot of work through the comprehensive planning process, especially since the adoption of Vision 2050, and helping get to that local implementation and help folks figure out how, Vision 2050 sets these big goals and ideas for the region, but of course, the rubber doesn't hit the road until we get to cities, and until you look at the plan that I'm sure a lot of you were involved in implementing, adopting, and so Vision 2050 for our agency was a really important step towards recognizing that housing and housing affordability is an important part of our growth framework. And so, of course, we're thinking about growth not only in population and jobs, but people need places to live. And as Josh was saying, we think a lot about where those houses should be. In particular, thinking that living close to where you work is an important way of having more time with your family, also having a shorter commute. I'm thinking about my 1-year-old that is back at home, and I'm so lucky to be able to have a short commute so that I can spend more time with her. Housing affordability is an important piece of this, and so I have some discussion of our tools and resources that we have as an agency to provide to all of you, but also some data that I want to walk through. And so first we'll go into the data to just kind of set the scene, and then we'll talk about some of the resources that we have. Oh, that was back. Okay. So Vision 2050 directed us to create this regional housing strategy. So a lot of the things that I will talk about fall under these 3 large categories, which we call our 3 S's. So first, thinking about supply, building more units. That one's pretty straightforward. Stability, making sure that once people are in housing, then they can stay where they are, that they're safe and have the things that they need to be successful. And subsidy, really the money needed to make those other 2 things possible, especially for the housing that is affordable. So getting into the data a little bit, this first slide compares the monthly cost of rent and home ownership. And what we've seen, especially as we've gotten into the 2020s, is that it's way more expensive to buy a home and to have a mortgage. And of course, this is really driven by interest rates, as well as a host of other factors. But we are seeing that it's twice as expensive to buy a home, to pay a mortgage, than it is to just rent housing. And this, importantly, is shutting a lot of people out of out of the ability to own a home, out of that that stability, and that creates a whole host of other challenges throughout the housing market. But just to own the homes, in addition to that interest rate driving things up, just the cost, the home values have increased really significantly across our region. Costs in home values in King County have doubled since 2015, and of course you can see the home values in some of the other counties in our region are lower, but Snohomish County is creeping up. That they're actually, those prices are growing faster than they are in King County, and as we see people be priced out of King County, they're going further to find housing that is affordable. This shouldn't be surprising, but you know, we're trying to build more housing for people, and we saw a lot of growth through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, but unsurprisingly, you know, after the financial crash in 2008, the 2010s there was a lot less production of homes. 80,000 fewer units were built in the 2010s compared to the decade average, and we're seeing from some of the data that I'm not able to, we don't quite have the complete data for this slide, but in the 2020s, that at least single family home production is still quite low. This also illustrates that there's a quite larger share of very large 4+ bedroom homes that were being built in the 2010s, and so the actually illustrates that those affordable home ownership options, things you might think of as starter homes, are becoming even harder and harder to come by. I actually saw an article last week that said in our region that the typical starter home is over $1 million, and that's the starter home being thought of as something that's at the lower third of the market, and that's over $1 million, making it quite out of reach for almost anyone. Next, thinking about rentals, we have seen quite a lot of rental development in our region, which is great to fill in since we've had this gap in the production of single family units, and it has helped to keep rents from increasing even further. But as you kind of see illustrated by these the brackets on this slide, in the 2010s, and again this has been true in the 2020s, a lot of that production has been in very small units, studios, and 1-bedroom units, because those are the most economical, offer a lot of return on investment, but it doesn't provide places for people with families, for people to grow into. So it is increasingly being seen as a challenge for housing in our region. I include some quotes here from some focus groups that we did as part of our regional housing strategy, just illustrating the challenges that people have had. One saying, I can't move because even if I tried to move, I can't afford to because everything's so high. I think this one is particularly poignant for folks that feel like they're locked into the mortgage rates that they currently have. And another person that was able to get into the home, but not able to afford an additional deposit to get heating. So really a vast variety of challenges that folks have with their housing. I want to show this slide on renter cost burden. This is a little bit of a wonky topic, but cost burden is the concept of the percentage of of your income that you pay towards housing costs. And this shows renters specifically, but and cost burden in general being that you pay more than 30% of your income towards rent, and severe cost burden being those who pay more than half their income towards rent. And what we see is this is grouped, each bar is grouped by the amount of income for each category, and see that almost all households for the very low income ranges, our cost burden, they're paying way more than is really sustainable to just to have a place to live. But one thing that we have seen over the last few years is this cost burden is creeping up to even higher income households. You can see that even folks that are making nearly six figures, that $75,000 to $100,000 a year, almost half of those households are cost burdened, are paying almost a third of their rent, a third of their income to rent. So we're seeing this really be a challenge that's expanding across more and more households each year. So this is the title of the slide. It kind of gets at a solution to the problem, but we see across our region, across every county, there's not a lot of diversity in the types of housing options that we have. 80% in King County are single family homes. There's a much smaller amount of other types of housing for people to live in. And so we, as PSRC, we are really doing our best to encourage additional types of housing. You may be familiar with the middle housing bill that went through the state legislature, as well as some of the legislation around ADUs, or accessory dwelling units. These are examples of some of the diverse housing types that we're seeing a lot of folks encourage and see pop up. So this kind of pointing to a little bit of a solution. But Josh mentioned earlier a little bit about growth trends and how we got to where we are today. But as part of Vision 2050, we're thinking about how much more housing does there need to be across the region. And so split up across each county, just in King County, from 2020 to 2050, we, in order to accommodate our growth, our projected growth, we need to build over 400,000 units just in King County, 800,000 units for the entire region. So, of course, that's split up among the many different cities and towns throughout the county, but it does make a difference on the ground, and part of PSRC's effort of bringing people together to share the burden of that growth is acknowledging those portions and targets that each jurisdiction has. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit here just about some of the resources that we have available for both planners, elected officials, members of the public. So first off, we have a tool called our Housing Innovation Program, and you can see I took a screenshot from our webpage. It's a searchable tool, so if there are specific things that you tools or things like accessory dwelling units that you want to know more about, you can just use this to search and filter and narrow down different things to learn about. And it also includes examples of model code, other jurisdictions in the region that are using this tool or finding some success there. And it can be a really beneficial way to, if there's something you'd like to implement locally, this is a great place to go. The second one is called our Housing Opportunities by Place, and it's a relatively new tool that we have. And it shows, it's kind of a mapping tool, and we used the list of all of those different documents that we have in the previous one, the innovations program, and organized and categorized those by different types of places throughout the region. And so you can go onto our site, use this link, and click on select the city of Snoqualmie, or you can look at the city of the town of Ording, or wherever else it may be, and it will give you a select number of tools that might be best suited for your community. Of course, you're entitled to use any and all tools that you choose to, but we think that this helps sift through the hundreds of documents available on the site to help folks use the resources a little bit more easily. Finally, I wanted to note that funding frequently comes up of affordable housing. This has a lot going on this slide, but funding for affordable housing is always going to be an issue. It's something talking with planners across the region. We did a survey at the end of last year, and overwhelmingly, I identified the biggest barrier to affordable housing is having money to do it. It shouldn't come as a surprise. We do see that jurisdictions are using this local tool, the sales and use tax, really effectively to get that deeply affordable housing. Over half of the jurisdictions in our region are using that in some way, one way or another. And a lot of jurisdictions in the region are working through these sub-regional coalitions. Arch is one, a regional coalition for housing, as well as there are several others throughout the region that are working to kind of pool their funds together and make a larger impact. And finally, I put links in the presentation to several of these other resources. We have lots of data resources. We have quite a large data staff that if there's something that you'd like to know about your community, we have folks on hand that can help with that, get you the data that you need. I will say you can click on the links, use them as much as you want, and the data staff are incredibly resourceful, but much better than I am at finding the data. So I encourage you to use the resources that we have available. And that's all I've got.
All right, Council, we have about 5 minutes for questions. If any of you have any questions, either for Mr. Dixon or Mr. Brown. Councilmember Tessman.
Sure. Going back to the 418 figure that's required for the growth we anticipate, just to put a fine point on it, is that, we're projecting over the next 25 years, 1.5 million, call it, in growth. Is that just kind of to ensure everyone has a seat when the music stops, or is it more we need 418 to achieve a specific affordability profile? Does that make sense?
Yeah, great question. It's hard for us to analyze how much housing you would need to adjust housing prices. We know we need more, but clearly we're not building enough. But the framework that we have is each of our counties goes through a process when they arrive at how much they should plan for. They coordinate with our agency, but then they get estimates from the Office of Financial Management. And then those numbers are then in a collaborative fashion divided amongst all the cities in King County.
Okay.
Council?
What's clear is we just have never kept pace with as much as we have said we're planning for growth.
Council, that's just a
Thank you.
good point to just mention that the sort of next thing that I'm hoping to bring to you is a discussion now of, with this sort of level set at the PSRC level, now what's been assigned in King County and down to Snoqualmie, and then get into some of the details of that. But it seemed like this would be a good background before we got into that. So that'll be a future conversation, but not too distant future. But sorry, I saw some other hands. Councilmember Watton.
Thank you very much for the presentation. What a treat to have you both here, Josh and David. One of the biggest challenges for Snoqualmie is that our workforce between the two cities of North Bend and Snoqualmie, we have about 10,000 people. 80% cannot afford to live here. So, the big challenge for us is there's a disconnect between what our local community really needs and what's being mandated by the state through Department of Commerce. How can we help bridge that? Because they're saying, we need to be developing housing for 30 to 50% when we know that it's more like 50 to 80% is where our weakness is.
Great question. So this is the first time we've ever done this. So we're learning.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And I think what's fair to say is, as we're going through this process of implementing a lot of new requirements from the state, we're discovering challenges to implement that at the local level. We're learning. And I think it's not going to have to be a couple years. It's probably a couple months maybe, or maybe we already know some ways that we need to be smarter together. So I think what we want to be able to do as a membership organization is, I've heard loud and clear from our member governments a lot of frustration of more and more directives coming down from the state. Folks want to focus on the implementation, but clearly just implementing what we have, what you all, along with our other governments, are required to already do, is going to be very challenging. So I think we want to figure out some ways that we can collaborate with all of you, be a good voice. We have a shared interest of what we want. We want affordable housing for our communities, but sometimes the complexity of the requirements is very challenging to implement.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember Testament.
Kind of related to that, right, is we've all heard the push for middle housing. Okay. I think when you contextualize that in the Vision 2050, right, where we want to concentrate growth to areas that have already been developed, middle housing makes a lot of sense, right? Higher density, the better. And in fact, it's the only path to achieving that. But when we talk about a city like Snoqualmie, which is predominantly single family homes, right? That doesn't necessarily look like the right solution. And so my question is, for a community like Snoqualmie, why would middle housing or even higher density housing necessarily be the right solution? Given your answer to my first question, which is, we don't necessarily have a really good data-driven connection between potentially housing type and affordability effects. Is that accurate? Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, a little bit. I guess what I would say is, you have a pretty diverse community. You
Sure.
have the Ridge, you have your historic downtown. Every community in our region is a version of you in terms of having places where missing middle may make sense, and other parts of your community where it's not going to make much sense. I mean, I've been quite amazed by how many of our smaller cities and towns in the region have made missing middle work. Again, using Paulsbo, where I'm from, the former mayor of Paulsbo spearheaded a infill missing middle townhome development that was an affordable housing project just blocks away from their historic downtown. So I think you have to figure out the pathway that makes sense for your community. And obviously not everything's going to make sense everywhere. But I think the key point that David stressed, and you spoke to that as well, since the Great Recession, 70% of the housing we're building in the region is multifamily. That's great insofar as a lot of that is closer to job centers and transit options. But most of that is rental housing. So what we haven't cracked the code on is building condominiums at scale And right now, really that townhouse development in many communities is the best opportunity for new home ownership in infill. So I think, each of our communities is different, but we're seeing in lots of places throughout the region where those infill townhouses are working. And they're making sense in those communities. But clearly, if you have an area like the Ridge, it's going to be a very different situation.
So Mr. Brown, Mr. Dixon, thank you so much for being with us tonight. 45 minutes of just fantastic information. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. And whatever you need offline, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor.
Thank you. And with that, we've come to the end of our special meeting agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Watton, second by Councilmember Washington. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Meeting's adjourned. Good evening and welcome to the June 22nd, 2026 City Council regular meeting. Thank you for joining us. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy,
Here.
Councilmember Watton, somewhere. Okay, Councilmember Holloway, Councilmember Washington,
Here.
Councilmember Cotton,
Present.
Councilmember Testman,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
The roll is complete. We have a quorum.
Councilmember Holloway has requested an excused absence from tonight's regular meeting. Is there a motion excusing Councilmember Holloway?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Washington, second by Councilmember Johnson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Please stand me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Testman, would you please lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Washington. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Johnson.
Hopefully I picked the right ones here. Move AB 26-034 and AB 26-039 and AB 26-037 to immediately following public comments and requests for items not on the agenda.
No.
Sorry, could you scroll down so I could see those?
Oh, thank you. Mayor, if I could add one more to my list.
Sorry, are you attempting to move the order of ordinances?
I'm attempting to move, actually 4 items. I did miss one, but I will read them off again. AB 26-034, AB 26-039, and AB 26-037. And the one that I forgot was AB 26-032, which are all kind of related and to immediately following the public comments and requests for items on the agenda.
Second.
Sorry, moved by Councilmember Johnson. Did I hear a second? Councilmember Cotton, seconded by Councilmember Cotton. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. The agenda is revised. Any further discussion of the agenda, of the amended agenda? Councilmember Johnson.
And then move to suspend the rules to allow public comment on the on all four of those items, because I would cover it. But just to specify that, I'm sorry, let me just say it. I'll just spit it out. Start over. Move to suspend the rules to allow public comment on the proposed battery energy storage system in the UGA during the public comment section, which usually is just for items that are not on the agenda.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Watton. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The agenda is amended for that item. Any further discussion of the amended agenda? We'll just need a minute.
Yeah. 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 It's gonna be all.
Okay, I think I got it. Any further discussion of the agenda as amended? See none, all those in favor of the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The amended agenda is passed. All right, the next item is public hearing on the 2027 to 2033 Transportation Improvement Plan. We'll call the public hearing to order. Any wishing to make comments on the 2027 to 2033 Transportation Improvement Plan may approach the podium and make comment. All right, seeing none, we'll bring the public hearing to a close. Public hearing on 2027 to 2033 Transportation Improvement Plan is closed. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is proclamations. Whereas July 4th, 2026 marks the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the founding of the United States of America. And whereas America's 250th anniversary provides an opportunity to reflect on our nation's history, celebrate our democratic institutions, and recognize the many individuals and communities whose contributions have shaped our country. And whereas Snoqualmie Valley has been home to the Snoqualmie Indian tribe since time immemorial, and since the city's incorporation in 1903, generations of residents have joined them in shaping the history, character, and success of our community. And whereas community traditions such as Snoqualmie's annual Red, White, and Boom celebration bring residents together to commemorate Independence Day, reflect on our shared history, and celebrate the values that unite us. And whereas preserving and sharing local history helps strengthen community connections and inspires future generations to participate in civic life. Now, therefore, I, James Mayhew, Mayor of the City of Snoqualmie, do hereby proclaim that the City of Snoqualmie recognizes and celebrates the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and encourages all residents to commemorate this historic milestone through reflection, learning, and community engagement. With us tonight is the leader of our Red, White, and Boom celebration here in Snoqualmie, Jeff Mahal, and welcome to make a few comments.
Thank you, Mayor. As he said, my name is Jeff Mahal. I'm the event planner for Red, White, and Boom. I'm also an employee at Church on the Ridge, and I'm honored to receive this proclamation today. I was going to attempt to write something patriotic or clever myself, but after reading an article in the Kid's Guide to the Declaration of Independence, it summarized it better than I ever could have written, so I'm going to quote it instead. This July 4th marks 250th anniversary of America. Americans know it as a day to gather with friends and family, have a barbecue, catch a parade, maybe a baseball game, and settle in for a night of celebration and fireworks. Yet with all that fun and excitement, many wonder what the party is all about, especially as we celebrate America's 250th birthday. If you're wondering why 250 is so important, it is simple. America is one of the only handful of the world's oldest and most stable nations. Now, many of you may think that the European nations, China or Japan, are older, but that is by name only. Those nations have had dictators and several complete changes of government. The United States has been the same people first, freedom-based constitutional government since day one. In fact, since America's birth in 1776, over 90% of the world's nations have collapsed or changed governments, and more are changing every day. A nation having 250th birthday is so rare, there's a special word for it. It's called the semi-quincentennial. That's a pretty big word, right? Well, it should be, because not only does July 4th celebrate America's birth and freedom and unity, with so few nations as free as America, it is also an important time to reflect on what freedom means and how we as Americans can and must keep it going. Looking back at 250 years, America has shown the world a remarkable story of faith, freedom, and strength. We fought and won revolution, came through Civil War, 2 world wars, and some very hard times. Through it all, we've had a place in where most of the world wants to come, a wonderful melting pot of people, and we have kept a constant position as a global superpower, all by carrying forward the spirit and freedom and independence that began in 1776. So who knew this Kid's Guide could be so perfectly written? After further research, I found that John Adams, our first vice president and second president of these United States, predicted how Independence Day would be celebrated. And I quote, "I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to our God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forevermore." So fast forward to 2015, when the opportunity presented itself to Church on the Ridge and expressed their desire to produce a professional community fireworks show to celebrate 4th of July. This production, entitled Red, White, and Boom, brings our community together, supports local businesses, provides a safe, family-friendly way to celebrate our nation's birth. In 2026, we celebrate our 10th year of planning and producing this event. It takes a collaborative effort with the City of Snoqualmie, including but not limited to the permitting, police, fire, emergency service, and parks and recs departments, along with local and regional vendors, food trucks, sponsors, donors, and more than 180 volunteers that make this event a reality. At Church on the Ridge, we are beyond thrilled to celebrate both America's 250th anniversary and Red, White, and Boom's 10th anniversary in production. We're grateful for this partnership and the support that we have made over the past decade. Together, we look forward to creating another memorable 4th of July at our community park in 12 days. We'll see you at the Boom.
All right, next item on the agenda is a summary, a presentation of some of the upcoming events in Snoqualmie. And I think we're joined by our by our Nicole Wiebe. And she will kind of give us a quick summary of that, and welcome to take any questions as well.
Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to give you there it is. Just a little bit of narrative about what that document says up there. We're kicking off the summer season this Thursday with Big Truck Day, which has become one of our signature events. New this year, I've moved that event from Centennial Park up to Community Park. That decision was not made lightly. That decision was made with safety in mind. That park and the surrounding roads were just not adequate enough to handle all of the 500 to 750 people that attend that event. So by moving it up to Community Park, we have free pedestrian-friendly parking all around Community Park. I'm hoping that the businesses up on the ridge will be able to have people have lunch afterwards, do all the things. So like I said, that event can attract 500 to 750 people. It depends on the weather. Wednesday is going to be, in my opinion, horrendous at 87 degrees, but Thursday is going to be lovely in the 70s. So I think it's going to be a good day for us. The next big day for us that Jeff spoke to is the 4th of July. The city of Snoqualmie, fire, police, and the Parks Department will be supporting 4 separate events in the community that day. It's a big day for staff, and we will have staff here from dawn till probably dawn the next day doing some cleanup. So we appreciate the partnerships that we're able to do to bring for that event. So this year, like all other years, I'm doing 2 music in the parks. We have good bands that come to this community, and I don't think people quite realize the bands that we bring. So on the 9th, we're going to be bringing Petty Thief, which is a popular Seattle tribute band for Tom Petty. And then on the 23rd, we're going to be bringing Nightwave, which is an 80s new wave band. That band, I do want to highlight, they perform at venues all around the greater Puget Sound area, and people pay tickets to see that band. So we're offering it because of the support that you, City Council, give to the events program. We're presenting that free. So I really hope that people take the opportunity to come out and enjoy that. Typically I do 2 movies. This year I had money in the budget and I had money and time in the calendar. So we'll be doing 3 movies in the park. Those are up at Jeannie Hansen. Those are a big draw too. We get a few hundred people. Some of the businesses do prizes and raffles. So we do raffles and prizes and listen to music before the movies start. This year, if you're curious, we're showing Ratatouille, School of Rock, and Jurassic Park. It's a team decision here at City Hall about the movies that we select. July is probably our biggest month of the year, and biggest month meaning the number of events and the number of events and just what's going on and the support that the city provides for those events, both events that I coordinate with my team here at the city and also external partners. Thomas is coming back to town this year. He's coming for 3 weekends, starting with the weekend of July 10th, 11th, and 12th. So for that first weekend, we'll have Thomas. Then we will have Sip Fest downtown on Saturday night. And then the first of 2 weekends, the Cascade Soccer Tournament. And that happens at Community Park and Jeannie Hansen Park. So that's a lot. It's a lot going on in our community. It's great because we're able to showcase our community to a lot of people that come into town for those events. The second weekend, July 17th, 18th, and 19th, again, we got Thomas, we got soccer, We have the fire department. I hope it's okay that I'm saying it, Gary. The fire department bike rodeo is going to be on Friday. And No Boat Brewing. Yes, Kat.
Police department.
What did I say? Did I say fire? Look at Gary, I'm transferring you to another department. Thank you. So No Boat is doing an event, I think it's called Loggerhead, and it's their third year doing it's contained on their property, very popular. That event continues to grow and they get hundreds of people coming to that event. And I think they do a really good job of keeping it kind of self-contained without having a lot of impacts on the city, but a lot of people coming in from outside the area. So we're able to showcase our community. Boeing Classic or National Night Out, we're doing that at Community Park. That is the police department, and maybe the fire department might swing by in their red truck and just kind of make an appearance. Boeing Classic, they're back. Snoqualmie Days, the 22nd downtown. The Snoqualmie Street Fair, that is a partnership event between the city and the chamber. That has been rebranded. It used to be the Seattle International Block Party, and it's been rebranded to the Snoqualmie Street Fair. It's not listed here, but we do some Halloween events, kind of a progressive trick-or-treating, starts at the Ridge and goes downtown and then also goes to North Bend, and that's going to be on the 24th of October. And then we round out the year with a month-long holiday lighting. So we start the lights on Thanksgiving weekend and they go until New Year's, and then we kick off our tree downtown on December the 5th. So that's a big lift. It's something that I'm really proud that our city can do. And again, that city council provides the funding. That's a signature event, and we have become a destination for a lot of people. It's a repeat tradition, and a lot of people come from outside the area. So I think it's a good event for us to do for not only our community and our residents, but for the businesses as well in what would typically be kind of a cold, dark winter season. So those are the events. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Councilmember Murphy.
Really excited for Night Wave. I've seen them at the casino. If you like the Police, Depeche Mode, Billy Idol, you're gonna have a nice night. So highly, really stoked about that. Also want to say, no, there was some drama last week about the parade and was it going to happen or was it not? But I really appreciate that the staff and the mayor were able to come together with the ROA to continue that. As I said to others, if the existence of our small parade was the biggest crisis of the week, we are living the dream. So really thank everyone for facilitating that.
All right, Ms. Weedy,
Alrighty
thank
then.
you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Nicole.
At this time, we will provide time for public comment on items not on the agenda and any comments on the proposed BEST facility in the urban growth area outside of Snoqualmie and King County, but adjacent to the city. Comments on agenda items will be taken during the discussion of each of those agenda items. Public comments are taken in person or in writing that may be submitted in person, mail, or email to cityclerk@snoqualmiewa.gov. First, a few ground rules. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Come forward to the podium and state your name and city of residence for the record. Please direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. Council members, staff, and I will listen to your comments and consider your input, but will not respond during this meeting. With that, would anyone like to speak to any concern that is not on the agenda tonight? Please approach the podium. All right, seeing none. Public comment is now closed. Let's see, so we reordered this. So the next item on the agenda is first read of Agenda Bill 26-034, Ordinance 1327, 2025-2026 Budget Amendment involving multiple amendment requests. Councilmember Johnson, will you please, this is a first read, so please read the introduction, but not the motion.
This ordinance amends the 2025-2026 biennial budget to fund capital projects and emergent repairs.
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, council, if it's all right, we have a presentation regarding this from staff. And I think we have, let's see, Finance Director, I'm going to mess your title up.
Budget Manager.
Budget
Janet Walker.
Manager Jana Walker
Here
here
to
to
share.
go through it. Yes.
So for starters, this budget amendment is for a total of $9,358,478. Not all of that represents dollars leaving our city, but those are the changes we need to make to achieve all of our goals that we would like to. What's actually leaving the city is approximately $4.1 million. And I'm just going to go through each budget amendment one by one. Our first relates to facility repairs. We had some emergent issues happen relating to HVAC and relating to hot water heaters. Also a failed compressor that totaled almost $100,000. So we are requesting $96,743 to be paid out of our facilities maintenance fund, which is Fund 510. That fund does not have sufficient reserves to handle an extra expenditure. So we are also requesting a transfer from Fund 002, our general fund reserve, for the same amount. And we would transfer that directly to the Facilities Maintenance Fund 510. The next amendment is more of a housekeeping item. We plan to do some undergrounding of fiber optic at the outset of the capital improvement plan for 2025-26, and that project was budgeted appropriately, but we did not include the transfer out of the IT fund and into the governmental capital, the non-utility capital fund. So this transfer, this amendment accomplishes $300,000 moving out of our IT fund and into non-utility capital. Next up, we have the railroad crossing project, also on our capital improvement plan. This project is primarily funded by some federal highway dollars. Approximately $2.1 million is what we originally anticipated as the grant. And the project was slightly more than that at $2.14 million. Both the grant and the project are increasing in size, and we would like to amend the budget by $1,899,000 to achieve this railroad crossing project. You can also see that there's a grant increase of $1.825 million. There's a slight difference between the grant amount and the project amount increase, and that relates to city labor. So there's some reassigning going on. We have a fixed quantity of city labor, but we assign it to each project based on the size of the project.
Councilmember Cotton.
So in the case of for the railroads, we have of course, some incoming grant monies. And so does that go directly into the non-utility capital fund, or does that go into the general fund? And that's why we don't see it here.
It would go directly into the non-utility capital fund.
Okay, so it would be reflected as a source.
That's correct.
Okay.
As a reminder, council, you don't appropriate sources, you appropriate expenditures. So it will be a source into that fund, but it doesn't, require.
It's always nice to
action.
see ins and outs.
It is very nice to see ins
Or knowing
covering
that
the
there's-
outs.
Our next amendment relates to the Business Park Lift Station, and this is a capacity improvement at this lift station that allows for the Snoqualmie Valley Hospital expansion. The hospital is expected to pay for the full value of this contract. However, the total value of the appropriation exceeds the contract value. The appropriation we're requesting is $438,199. And the reason that exceeds is once again related to labor, city labor. Now we are at the Sandy Cove Park Riverbank Restoration and Outfall Project. This relates to AB 26 036, which is also, I believe, on the roster for tonight. We're requesting a one-time appropriation increase of $1,627,793. This project was, there's a couple of things going on. We have not exceeded our project estimations by $1.6 million. There's a few things happening. The first is that we are now switching to life of project appropriations. So if you recall, the project appropriations that we're showing you should encompass the birth of this project, which is not in this biennium. It's been about 5 or 6 years, and then all the expenditures that we expect to happen afterwards. In our initial estimations of this, we did not include some expenditures that we had already expended, so they won't affect this biennium at all. Let me just jump to a different slide that illustrates this. I think I have to stop my share to do this. So we have a historical true up happening, $490,000 is that value, and that is money that we've already spent. It does not affect any utility rates or anything going forward. We also have an internal labor component of $478,000. And the estimates that we made for this, the engineer estimates, didn't include sufficient headroom for all of the city labor that we want to assign to that, which is, it's all estimations, but we estimate it to be $478,000. And then there's also a contract exceedance above and beyond the engineer's estimate of $660,000. That totals that project increase we just discussed of $1.6 million. We would also propose reducing SR 202 Bridge Utility Main Replacement Project by the amount of 1.1 million, and that's equal to those two orange highlighted items, both the internal labor and the contract greater than engineer estimate, which leaves us with a net utilities project increase of $490,000, which is equal to the historical true up.
Councilmember Murphy.
Maybe this was covered off in F&A, but would you walk us through the project that, well, I guess will be deprioritized, the SR 202 Bridge Utility Main Replacement? I don't recall seeing that as part of the Parks and Public Works conversation, but perhaps it was discussed in F&A last week.
No, Ms. Walker, let me try and help with that. So during the Parks and Public Works discussion, there was discussion about discomfort with the idea that we would increase our appropriation without some offset. The question is, well, where's that money going to come from? So in response to that question, we've gone back and taken a look. We gave a somewhat generalized answer to that, but we decided, no, let's go back and make a very specific answer to that. So the first thing that we had to do was the 1.6 million. We had to figure out how much of that is actually future cash flows. And so as Ms. Walker explained, $490,000 of that is in essence an accounting true up. It's already spent in the past, but we're pulling that into the total project accounting to make sure we have a fulsome accounting of this project. So that is really just truing up the project life of project appropriation that this council has made, but it requires no future cash flow. So that's that piece of it. That leaves us with the 1.1 million that I think you're asking about. So what we did is we went back and looked at the other projects. So as you recall, so this is the utility CIP project. It's got a 6-year plan. We revisit rates every 2 years. One of the significant things that happens when we revisit rates is we look at the projects we planned to do last time over a 6-year horizon, and we look at what's changed. So those that we planned to do in the first 2 years, did we do them? At what amount did they come in? Did they come in below, above? Now, what have we learned since then about the remaining projects? So a lot goes, and by the way, then we had 2 new years because it's a new 6-year look. So there's a lot of moving parts every 2 years when we do this. So we went back and looked, and this project that we've identified is not falling before the next time that we do a rate study and that you will have a chance to look at rates. And we can limit the scope of this project or the timing of it such that we can have an offset. So what we're saying now is we're going to come to you and we're going to take down the project budget for this so that the total appropriation, the total amount we're asking you to let us spend over these 2 years will not be greater than what was in the original rate study. And then when we relook at this project along with its timing in the next rate study, that'll sort of work out in that process. And to the extent that there's any impact to future rates, you'll be able to evaluate it then. So rather than leave this open notion of, well, we'll find something in the next rate study, we went and found it now. And we said, we know that this is something we can take off the list. And so we're coming to you and say, we'll take this off the list now. And then rather than the vague, we'll put it in the future rate study. Now it's specific. Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, just to perhaps answer very directly the question, it sort of came up in F&A in that the question was, well, where's this going to come from? And now we have our answer.
Councilmember Murphy.
I guess though, now we're deciding two things, right? We're deciding to defer or delay this other project, which the merits on which I don't think we've gotten a briefing on. This wasn't discussed in Parks and Public Works. So I'm seeing this here for the first time, and I don't know, is this something that, do we have a critical need for this project? I just don't know the answer to these questions. And I think now we're deciding whether to advance this budget amendment through this funding mechanism to an offset by a project that, I don't know, I feel like this is kind of getting thrown at us here, and this feels like it would have been better discussed at our last Parks and Public Works meeting on the merits of, does this project go forward as usual or not? I appreciate the offset pathway, but to move forward in this manner, I'm a bit uncomfortable at the moment with that.
Yes, let me try and help with that. You're not making any decision about this project. This project was never planned within this biennium. It still is not planned within this biennium. It is not planned before you go through your next rate setting process. So there's no project being deferred or reduced. It's a project that we're identifying now. By the way, there are many projects in that 6-year rate plan that are not happening the way that you thought they would when you passed that rate plan. Many projects did not happen last year that were planned to happen last year. There are other projects that were planned for this year that are not happening. So there's a whole slew of moving parts. The important thing here is you are not making any decision to defer a project beyond when it was initially planned. And you will have a look at this again, well, certainly in the rate setting process, and then again at the time that the project comes forward to be considered for you to approve. Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, that's essentially what I was going to say, but also we do know that Sandy Cove is disappearing at an alarming rate. And that's something that we were intending to do within this biennium. It turns out that it's going to be more expensive than we may have wanted it to be, whereas this other project wasn't going to be in this biennium anyway.
Councilmember Cotton.
So with this change in this offset, is this going to affect the $1.6 million contract request that's coming forward tonight on Sandy Cove?
It does not.
So we are essentially approving still a $1.6 million.
Well, you may or may not approve that, but that is still the request to you, yes. And just as a reminder, that request is based on a bid that was put out, and a bid request that was put out, and that amount is based on the lowest responsive bidder's bid to us.
Follow up, please.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember Cotton.
So in essence, by then deferring from this biennium, the 202 bridge utility main replacement, we won't see any effect on the project increase, or in other words, the source coming in for that? Or are you just, it's another shell game where we're just moving from fund to fund?
Okay, there's no deferral and there is no shell game. There is a 6-year schedule of projects that you approved,
Mhm.
okay? This project is not planned within this, and never was planned within this biennium or prior to the next rate study that you'll do. So there's no deferral, there's no shell game, there is simply a project identified that we'll take down by this amount to make sure that we're not exceeding your total appropriation that you gave, and that was built into the rate study. And then this, revised project will be part of the next rate study that you see. Councilmember Johnson.
Also, just a reminder to the council that this action also doesn't actually get those funds spent. There'd be a separate contract that the council could decide to either approve or not. The specific budget amendment just allows that to occur. If we didn't approve the budget amendment, it would become much harder to approve the contract because it wouldn't be funded. I don't even know if we can, because it wouldn't be appropriated.
The funding of the contract is a cash flow matter. That's not what you're dealing with now. What you're dealing with now is a total authorization that you've given administration to spend money. And so what was asked was, hey, if you're taking up the total appropriation, can you find an offset? And so that's what we did. So therefore, the total appropriation collectively will remain that same amount that was in the rate study that led to the utility rates that you approved. And it, again, doesn't defer any project. Councilmember Murphy.
I mean, I'm not even seeing this in the agenda packet, this slide right here. So the reason I'm feeling put off is because in reviewing this material, seeing this deferral, or not deferral, whatever we're calling it, the SR 202 bridge utility main replacement project reduction, I see that nowhere in our materials. So when I'm reacting this way because I don't feel prepared to make a decision on this. And I think I feel like we're being blindsided a little bit. So if you could perhaps clarify as to why we weren't able to get advance notice of this offset, I would appreciate that.
This offset is presented at this council's request. This council's F&A committee requested this be presented at this meeting, at their last meeting. If the council committees are going to argue with each other, please don't involve the administration in that. We complied with the request that was given to us by the F&A committee. Councilmember Cotton.
But F&A was on Tuesday and the budget packet didn't come out until Friday afternoon. So why, if they requested that it be included, was it not put into the budget packet 3 days later?
This information takes time. We have to talk about projects. There's a whole slew of projects.
I know. And
No,
everybody's
no,
busy.
I'm sorry. The notion that everyone has this kind of perfect knowledge is silly. This takes work. Our staff has to do work. They have to try to find the thing that you've asked us to do. Frankly, the fact that they got it to you today is quite surprising to me. And so the notion that somehow everyone knows every permutation that you might ask really is not realistic. We went and did the work that you asked us to do, and we brought you the information that you asked us to bring.
If I may, just for a
Councilmember
second.
Murphy?
I'll defer to
Councilmember Murphy?
I'll defer to Director Boone.
I'm not.
Okay. So I understand there's immense work that comes to getting this before us. But for me to see this for the first time at this moment is where I'm feeling uncomfortable.
Councilmember Johnson?
The good news is that this is an ordinance and this is a first reading, if I'm not mistaken. So we don't have to adopt an ordinance on a first reading.
In fact, your rules require you to do 2 readings.
Right. Unless we suspend the rules, means.
Point of order.
State your point.
The point is, we don't need to maintain tones of condescension to people asking questions for information. And
So
I'm speaking
council,
to the administration.
well, I'm speaking to the council. When you speak, I will speak in return. Beating up on our staff is not okay. Sorry, it's not okay. Councilmember Cotton,
Nobody is beating up on the staff. They do an excellent job.
thank you
The
for saying
staff
that.
is phenomenal.
Thank you
Our
for saying that.
city staff does a phenomenal job considering some of the issues that they have to fight against.
Couldn't agree more. Councilmember Murphy?
Yeah, no one has said a single word out of line with respect to the staff. This is
I-
not about the staff. Excuse me. This is not about the staff. This is about the information that we have that we need to make decisions. I totally understand that this is a first reading. Understand that there is there's more time to consider whatever it is we may need to consider here. But this is not, no one's coming down on staff. Staff do Herculean work to put all the data in front of us. And that's not lost on me or anyone up here. So listen, I think there's certainly more to consider on this. I'd like to list, I think we need to, we can probably turn the temperature down on this, but I hope that we can conduct ourselves with a little bit more transparency next time.
Councilmember Washington.
Thank you, Chair. Since this is the first time the council as a whole has seen it, is there any way that we could turn it over to the finance director and just allow him to give us a little bit of color on the replacement project reduction piece?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to say much. Really, our Parks Public Works Department is in charge of this project, right, overall. The reason why I'm here is just to suggest to council that Friday was a national holiday. Staff were not available on Friday necessarily. We did have some staff people on vacation as well. I could tell you that after the F&A committee, I had a conversation with a couple people in the department about whether they should cancel their vacation for a couple days in order to address this issue at a sooner time period. And I said no. I thought it was valuable for them to take that vacation. That was a decision on my part. Otherwise, we would potentially have this information before council sooner than today. So I just wanted to make sure that that was known by council as well. But when it comes to the project, I can't really speak to that necessarily, the SR202.
Councilmember Watton.
Thank you. I guess there seems to be a bit of urgency of getting this before us and just trying to find that middle ground. Is there a reason for the timing of us having this as the first reading, the first time that we get to see it as a council? Because that may help us understand why there's an urgency getting this done, because obviously, we've got to go through a second reading and then we've got to award the contract. And it seems like we're almost at July.
Yes, if I could help with that. So this project was put out to bid and then the bids were opened. Once that happens, there's a 30-day clock, 30-day clock that runs. At the end of those 30 days, the bid expires. So the contract was brought to Parks and Public Works for approval. The issue is that, as you can see on this slide, it's over budget. So there is no appropriation. So the city is not able to sign this contract without an appropriation. So given that there's 2 reads required to get there, and looking at the council's meeting agenda, we needed to bring this appropriation adjustment at the same time we were bringing the contract, because in fact, we won't be able to sign the contract until we have an appropriation that covers it. So that's what drove the timing. So therefore, the budget amendment was brought forward at the same time as the contract request. And this would enable you to say yes to the contract.
Good.
Oh, go ahead,
A second
Councilmember Watton.
follow-up. and that's just for everyone's edification. We adopt as a council a capital improvement plan. Plan is, it just simply lays out the things that we know that need to happen. Sometimes they're sequential, sometimes they're not. And understanding a little bit about Sandy Cove and having toured down there with the director, Hamlin, I have a little bit of an understanding and appreciation for the time sensitivity, because this thing should have been done already. And it's just delayed. And that's what happens with capital improvement. You can make the best plans, but other things get in the way. And I think I'm leaning of the mindset that, there are times when we need to act more quickly just because either that or we miss a window of time. And I think that that's probably helps to give me a little bit of comfort. But to the newer members that weren't part of the earlier discussions around the capital improvement plan, which is a very long document. It's a wish list of things, and we're not going to get through all of them. I mean, if you added up the totals under numbers that were created 5 years ago, they're horrendous. And we're not going to get through all of them. So we have to kind of pick and choose. And some of it comes down to the department heads and leaning into their expertise and knowing what their capacity is. And so I appreciate the members of this council being cautious and moving forward. But we've got to weigh it with, if we don't do it, the costs may even be greater than they are today. So, I guess that's probably what we need to hear more about as a justification, and maybe Parks and Public Works can chime in to help us understand that tonight.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of frustrating when there are two things on the agenda that have to do with something, and it's hard to figure out when to bring in what. But I think that some level of understanding of what's happening at Sandy Cove and its immediate future, which is a little bit scary, could be potentially useful. I did want to just see if I had something right, though. With regard to how we appropriate as a council, it's really just that bottom line. It isn't project by project. Is that correct? But we do approve contracts.
No, you appropriate. Okay, so it's a complex question. What you do in the general fund is different, and what you do with operating funds is different. For capital funds, you have capital funds out of the governmental side and the non-governmental side, so the utility side. For both of those, let me back up. On the governmental side, you budget in two ways. Specific projects, and beginning this last biennium, you budgeted life of project amounts, which is why we had to come and talk to you tonight about updating for previously spent amounts, because you've made a total project budget for life of projects. So that's why that part had to come to you. So you have a whole list of projects that so this is on the governmental side, list of projects that you've appropriated life of contract amounts. You then also appropriate programs such as the tree replacement program and the streets improvement program. Those you budget in 2 year. You just budget an amount for the biennium. Okay. Now going over to the non-utilities, the utilities side, you budget a bunch of projects, life of project amounts, including both of the two projects that we've been discussing tonight. Those are both in your utility fund, and you have appropriated life of project amounts. You also, in the utilities funds, appropriate operating expenses just for the biennial period. So it's sort of a complex question. It depends on which things.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
I do want to be very clear about this one. This does represent a change. So council could, if they're amenable, I could add this $1.1 million reduction into this current amendment. It would represent a change from what you're currently seeing in the packet and a reduction in the appropriation that we're requesting. Or we could choose to do this at another time and save it. So I need some kind of confirmation of whether I should change the amendment that's in the packet currently or continue with the current course we have.
Councilmember Watton.
I'm trying to figure out how to say this delicately. I think there's a little bit of disadvantage for those of us who have been on the council from time immemorial, to those that are now on the council trying to do the right thing. And I wish we could go back about a month ago when we had a retreat to go over these very things because they are really important. They're really deep. And I hope that we find time to do that because I think we all need to be on the same page. But tonight I'm going to trust the process of the departments in moving forward on this one. But I think it's a lesson going forward that we need to take very seriously, and that is making sure that all the council members are up to speed. And I hope that you have trust in the system, and I want our residents to have trust in the process. I'm just really concerned because this particular project, and I'm not on parks and the parks committee. However, I know that it's important, and I know that there is time sensitivity, and this happens to be one of them. But please, we need to go back and, if we're looking for another retreat this year of sitting down and going through some of this stuff, especially in a budget year, so that we are all on the same page. So that's my comment.
Councilmember Cotton.
Yes, I definitely think that however we can most quickly move forward on the Sandy Cove Phase 2 revetment due to the delays that we've experienced in the past and the fact that we have a limited window this summer of being able to do the work. So it's imperative that we do move forward with this in whichever way we can most efficiently and effectively do that, as per what Councilmember Watton said. I will certainly echo that, and being on the Parks and Public Works Committee, because we do need to get this going forward in the timely fashion. So I wouldn't say pull it at all, Jenna. I think that we need to push forward with it.
Councilmember Murphy.
Yeah, my thought would be to forge ahead, and that was probably some of the reason behind my heartburn, because I do believe that this is a critical project for our parks, our stormwater. We received extensive briefings around the need for it, right? So I think there's substance of the project itself. I'm very much understand the need and the urgent need for it. And I think that was kind of the source of kind of seeing this and seeing it maybe not being as straightforward as I would have liked. But I, again, will echo Councilmember Watton that we'll kind of trust the process and move this forward, hopefully move this forward to continue the discussion.
Councilmember Tessman.
Thank you. Yeah, I think from my perspective, totally get the urgency of Sandy Cove, and I support that. Given the fact that the 202 project, even if it's extremely important, the timing was never planned. We'll get another look at it, even with, setting aside the second reading on this in particular, but that project will get another look. And really, this is just a measure to true up the overall budget. I feel completely comfortable moving forward.
Council would be very helpful. Since this is your first read tonight, you'll be taking action at your next council meeting. If you could let me know individually, I'm happy to talk with you directly or meet with you. If you could let me know what would be helpful to help you get to a decision in terms of what information or how it's presented. If you could let me know over the course of the next week or so, I'll make sure that we pull that together for you. All right. Any further discussion on this item? All right, that was a first read. Moving on to this.
Chair,
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Johnson.
I think we did the Sandy Cove. I thought there's also the interfund loan slide. Maybe I missed that we did it, but I don't think that we did.
we did
Is that-
not.
Slide.
That's, I was going to
That's-
move on.
yeah,
That
it's
was
a different-
26034 is what you just discussed.
There's a slide about it. I thought for
Oh, so I'm sorry, hold on. Did we not get through this?
One more slide.
Go ahead.
And this one also relates to Sandy Cove. It is an interfund loan, which Director Boutte will discuss later. So I don't want to belabor this point, but there's an agenda bill related to this one. It's a request of $4.9 million transferred out of non-utility capital and into utility capital as a loan. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to Agenda Bill 26-039. This is an ordinance 1329 regarding again, the 2025-2026 budget. It's an amendment to increase appropriation for best review and analysis requests. Director Boutte.
So if you permit me, I think it would be better to just kind of start with the interfund loan to get through that, just because we left off on that slide, and then transition to the best review.
Hold on, Councilmember Johnson.
Move to do AB 26-037 now, and then pick up the next one, AB 26-039 right after.
Since you didn't actually, I mean, it's up to you, but since you didn't actually tell me which order those four should go in, we could simply just do that.
Okay. Okay.
All right, if there's no
I'm fine with
objection.
that.
So, all right, so let's tee this up then. What we're going to talk about now is, Mr. Boutte, tell me if I've got this right, Agenda Bill 26037, interfund loan for utilities capital fund?
Correct.
Thank you. Go
You
ahead.
got it.
So, sorry, hold on. Before you proceed, is there any public comment on Agenda Bill 26-037? All right, seeing none.
Chair.
Councilmember Johnson.
Do I need to read the introduction motion? Proposed?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
Shall I?
well, it's, yes, correct. I'm sorry. So you'll need
It's a
to read,
resolution on ordinance.
yeah, you'll need to read the introduction and motion.
Yeah. All right. This resolution authorizes an interfund loan in lieu of the external financing that was included in the biennial budget and utility rate study. The interfund loan is anticipated to be repaid from an external bond funding in 2027 rather than in 2025-2026 as originally planned. Move to approve the resolution authorizing the interfund loan.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Washington. If council is amenable, we'll have a presentation on this from Director Boutte. Go ahead, Director.
All right. Thank you very much, Mayor, and good evening to you, council. This is a weird one. When does a city normally borrow from itself? Well, actually, it's pretty frequent. So we haven't done one here at the city of Snoqualmie since 2014. In essence, what's happening here is one fund is lending money to another fund. And what this means is the interest that we would pay on this wouldn't leave the city out towards investors, but that interest that we would pay on this loan would actually stay in the city. Now, it's kind of weird to have kind of one fund lending money to another fund. And we have to keep in mind that the city is actually just not one business, but almost multiple businesses. So we've got things like the utility fund that could lend money to the non-utility capital fund, that could lend money to the general fund, and so on. And so you have to think of the city almost as kind of a collection of downtown businesses, for example. Another important aspect to this is to keep in mind that the city has to contend with restricted and committed revenues. So we just don't have one big source of sales that generate a whole bunch of cash that we can use here, there, and everywhere in between. We have these revenues and taxes that we collect in which we can only use for specific purposes. They're earmarked by law for those specific purposes, and we have to keep that in mind too. So what this is asking for is we're asking to lend money from the non-utility capital fund to the utility capital fund. And to just dive into it a little bit for some background purposes, council approved ordinance 1303 on May 12th, 2025, which established rates for the city's combined utility, which is water, sewer, and stormwater from 2025 to 2030. That ordinance was supported by a utility rate study, so it's a pretty large document that I believe you can see on our website. The utility rate study described the sources needed to cover the combined utilities forecasted nearly $170 million in operating capital and debt service costs during the 6-year rate setting period. Of the sources that we needed to support that, we were going to issue approximately $40.86 million in debt over that time period, that 6-year time period. Now, the $40.86 million in debt was expected to cover a portion of the $76.17 million in capital expenses anticipated during the 6-year rate setting period. Each debt issuance that we included as a part of the utility rate study assumed a 20-year term with a 5% interest rate and 1% for issuance costs. Now, over the course of this 6-year period, there were 3 issuances that we are anticipating, one in 2025, one in 2027, and one in 2029. To date, council has really only authorized an $8.65 million loan with the Washington State Department of Ecology at a 1.6% interest rate. So at least we know with that loan, we're beating our interest rate expectations that were built into the utility rate study. But as you can see, we haven't quite issued the full $40.86 million. And what that does is it creates a cash flow issue in our utility capital fund. So normally with those debt issuances that I talked about, we would either competitively sell or privately place a bond, for example, with a bank with an interest rate, and we'd be paying those banks or investors an interest rate over time. And that is money that essentially would be leaving the city. Now, when I mentioned without additional financing, the combined utility will not have sufficient funds or cash to cover its expenses through at least 2026 and to 2027. And so there's some considerations that we have to keep in mind as we kind of go through this is that financing comes at a cost. Right now, the market fluctuates constantly. A 20-year AA rated municipal bond is yielding approximately 4%, actually probably higher at this stage right now in the marketplace. And this is relatively high in comparison to history over the medium term. If you think back to the 2018 revenue bond, I don't know if anyone was here except for Councilmember Holloway during that time period. But the all-in true interest cost of that bond was 3.63. And so right now we'd be higher than the interest that we were approved for or that we're paying out on that 30-year bond that we issued back in 2018. In addition to that, the financing that is needed to sustain the combined utility through at least 2026 and into 2027 is relatively small and wouldn't really warrant the issuance costs associated with competitively selling or privately placing the bond. You have to keep in mind that there's underwriter fees, legal fees, financial advisor fees that are associated with that can really kind of add up cost over time that we're trying to prevent through this interfund loan. I think it's a good point probably in the step back and to ask the question, why would you want to issue debt? Well, first off, it's supporting cash flow in this instance. Another common benefit of taking out financing is the intergenerational equity aspect to this. And that means basically, if you use the system, you should be paying back for it. And so we want to make sure that not only a person today is supporting the investment in this capital, but someone that's going to benefit from that facility, say 20 years or 30 years from now, are also paying a portion of the principal and interest costs associated with that as well, because they're benefiting from that facility in 20 to 30 years. If you imagine, for example, that if we wanted to pay for this, pay for all these capital expenses right now, we'd have to generate such sufficient cash at this point in order to be able to accomplish that it would require some massive rate increases in order to do that, which is why you tend to spread it out over time through debt service or debt issuances. In addition to that, by taking out debt, we tend to lower the utility rates in the short term. So it benefits our current ratepayers that are here with us today. Our proposal in front of you is basically to lend money to the utility capital fund in an amount not to exceed $4.9 million at a 3.91% interest rate. Now, right now, the non-utility capital fund has a cash balance of $25.64 million. And there is no plan right now to use at least $4.9 million of that for non-utility capital purposes before the end of 2027. The 3.91% interest rate comes from the June 3rd, 2026 20-year term sale under the Office of the Washington State Treasurer's Local Option Capital Asset Lending Local Program. In essence, it's important for us to approximate the opportunity and cost of capital when we're going through this process. And so this is just a good benchmark for us to use in terms of establishing that interest rate. Right now, it's important as well to keep in mind that where we would typically invest these funds would be earning a lower return than the interest rate that we've got here. So the LGIP, which I believe Councilor Watt is very familiar with, for the month of May was earning a 3.67% interest rate, which means that the non-utility fund will be earning interest into it at a greater percentage or yield than it would probably earn if we were to invest that money into our local government investment pool. And so that's something to keep in mind too, is this not only benefits the utility capital fund, but it also benefits the non-utility capital fund too. The resolution that's in front of you, the interfund loan, can be repaid at any time without penalty. So we can certainly roll this interfund loan into a future debt issuance if we want to. And right now the plan is to repay this loan by rolling that, like I just stated, the outstanding principal into the currently anticipated 2027 bond issuance. So any principal that's outstanding that we haven't repaid can get rolled into that. And ideally by that time, the market will have improved ideally, and we'll be able to get a lower interest rate in 2027, which would benefit the entire program even more. So some impacts to consider: the interest paid by the combined utility would stay in the city. The debt service payment on the interfund loan is better than the original debt service payment planned in the utility rate study. So instead of, say, paying $432,000 annually, with what we're proposing here, the annual debt service would be $358,000, and that is principal and interest that would stay in the city. And as we've talked about, the interfund loan would provide a bridge to a future bond at a lower interest rate. So consequently, we're trying to use this kind of bridge loan to get us to a better market environment to be able to kind of deliver that lower interest rate, which if we can get that as low as possible, will benefit the ratepayers for years to come. So with that said, that's it at this agenda bill. Thank you.
Councilmember Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Director, so if rates don't, we shop rates in 2027, if they don't come down, then we would just stick with that 3.91% until another bond issuance, potentially, I don't know, 2029, that maybe rates do come down.
Yeah.
We just continue to pay that 3.91% to ourselves.
We can certainly continue to pay that 3.91. There is no 10-year period in which you have to wait until you can call, for example, this. So if we wanted to, we could refinance. The city could refinance its own bond, right, at a lower interest rate if we find that the Office of the State Treasurer local program is less than 3.91%.
Thank you.
So if I could, Councilmember Washington, so you'll have those options next year. So the rate study, the capital spending plan in the rate study, which is in the appropriation that you've approved, calls for spending next year and the following year, capital spending that will require borrowing. So you have in your plan that you approved, you approved a borrowing. So again, there was a borrowing last year that did not happen because the spending wasn't happening then. So no need to incur the debt. The spending now is going to occur this year. So we do need some debt. Next year, there's a plan for additional debt to fund the spending that's planned for next year. So at that time, you'll be able to choose. Do you continue this loan, just leave it in place? Do you refund it out of a new borrowing and just repay it? You'll actually be able to make those choices at that time, and you'll be able to see the rates, the comparative rates. The one other thing you'll have to consider at that time is, does the lending, the fund that is lending need that cash. And right now, there is no plan to spend that cash in the next 2 years. But you'll be able to revisit that question at that time as well. So you'll be able to kind of feed that into your whole decision. Okay, wait, we're making a new borrowing. What amount do we actually think we need at that time? And then do we want to repay this or not repay this? You'll be able to decide all that at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Makes sense.
Councilmember Watton.
Thank you. Just a reminder that part of this strategy we laid out a year ago or whatever, it was that based on the utility rate study, that if we didn't do this, our rate for the first year would go up by 12%. It did not. It's somewhere around, my memory is 7-8% instead. But this was the mechanism that we put in place because some of the projects had to be front loaded. And the only way you've got to keep things balanced. And so, this is a prudent measure going forward, and appreciate Director Boutte bringing this forward.
Councilmember Tessman.
Forgive me, maybe it's probably me being dense, right? But obviously there's an opportunity cost, presumably lost interest from the fund that would be losing the money, right? And so my question is, why would we charge ourselves more interest above and beyond whatever that lost yield would be? I don't get that.
So let me take a shot at that. So right now, the fund that would be lending the money is invested in the in a state investment pool.
Okay, that was referenced.
Right.
Okay.
And it is earning, so that money is currently earning an amount that is less than the interest rate on this interfund loan. So how does the interest rate on this interfund loan get set? It gets set by law. We have to charge a market rate. And so Director Boutte went through kind of how are we determining that rate. It's currently estimated at
3.91% based on the sale
3.91%.
June 3rd, 2026.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the 3.91% set by law is what we must charge
that's
for that
right, yeah.
interfund loan. But that, so therefore it doesn't cost the borrowing fund any more than it would if we'd pay
Right.
the same rate if we went to the outside market.
Sure.
But internally, the lending fund now shifts from an investment at the mid 3% and now gets this interest at the almost 4% level. So that fund benefits. The fund paying doesn't lose at all.
Yeah.
So by keeping this in the city as a whole benefits. Also, by the way, we don't incur the transaction costs in the borrowing fund of going out. Frankly, for this small a borrowing, it probably wouldn't be a bond. It would probably be a private placement. But anyway, there's transaction costs. And so we also save in the borrowing fund, the transaction costs. In the lending fund, we win with a higher interest rate, and that's required by law. It's not something that we could change anyway.
That's the piece that was missing. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, one of the things that I know is this council's been very sensitive to is the increased burden to our residents for fees and taxes, et cetera. And we've been looking for creative solutions to some of these issues, and I think that that the administration did find one in this.
Councilmember Washington.
Yeah, the other thing I'll add to, Mayor, to that, my understanding is it changes the complexity of our portfolio in terms of borrowing. So if we were to go out and do like you said, like a private placement, then that's less money potentially that we could borrow at a future date. Is that correct?
So I think you might be referencing the debt coverage ratio and how that potentially impacts the debt coverage ratio moving forward. I don't think that the interfund loan would be counted towards our
Not the
debt coverage.
interfund loan, but if we had to go out and borrow it privately.
Correct. That will
That would.
impact the debt coverage ratio that we have. Our goal is to maintain basically 1.5 times net revenue or net revenues to debt service, right? Because investors want to make sure that you can pay them back over the course of 10, 20, 30 years. And so they love to see something that's above 1.5 times. Certainly, if we were to go out into the market and have to get something that would impact how much we're actually paying in debt service. So your denominator would increase as a result of that. As a result, if you have a lower debt service coverage ratio overall, in terms of the credit rating agencies, their rate, right? How well your bond, how likely it is you were to pay an investor back, may no longer be at AA. Maybe that decreases, increases. It's hard to tell because we're not in front of a credit rating agency right now, but it all adds up over time.
We're speaking the same language.
Okay.
Derek, thank you.
If I could just add to that, the reason it's sort of first off, great question. It's a very complex question to answer because you're getting questions of senior debt and junior debt and how that would sort of
Pecking order,
math
yeah.
out. And so we're trying to do that in real time. One thing that is absolutely true is that the budget thought the interest rate would be just over 5%.
Correct. Yeah,
So
5%.
coming in, so as
Plus
Director
5%
Boutte talked about, a rate at around 4%
Mhm.
is higher than the last time we went out for debt. That was at mid threes, 3.63.
Mhm.
But with regard to the debt coverage ratio that you referenced, because this is below what was budgeted, this loan at 4% is beneficial to that calculation, which I think is what you were sort of trying to draw.
We're on the
to.
same page. We're absolutely on the same page.
Just saying, we're trying to beat the plan basically in terms of how much we're paying in debt service. And so I think this is a mechanism to help kind of support that. So I'm trying to beat the 5% that has been built into that utility rate study because eventually we want to keep the rates low as possible while we're still accomplishing our goals with the capital plan that we have. So making sure that we're providing excellent operations and maintenance to this community as well. So I feel that this is a strong way to work towards beating the plan, I would say, overall. And I think it's, a positive step in that direction.
All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, the motion to approve Agenda Bill 26037, interfund loan for utilities capital fund. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, Councilmember Johnson, there's 2 items left that you moved.
Yes.
Do you have a preference on the order?
I think it'd probably make more sense to go through what steps would need to be taken before we get into the cost and where it would come from. So I think probably AB 26-032 might make more sense to do next.
Seeing no objection, Councilmember Washington.
No objection. I would humbly ask for a 5-minute break.
It is 8:24. We'll be in recess till 8:30.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Eight 8:30, we're back from recess. Next item on the agenda is Agenda Bill 26-032. Approval for contract for services related to land use in unincorporated UGA. This coming out of F&A Committee. Councilmember Johnson, will you please read the introduction and motion?
All right. Excuse me. A battery energy storage system project application has been submitted to King County for the Cascadia Ridge Resiliency Energy Storage Project in the city of Snoqualmie's urban growth area. The city has contracted with specialized outside legal counsel regarding this project. Council previously authorized $50,000 for this legal service. The city is now proposing to hire consultants to assist in understanding the potential impacts of this proposed BESS facility and crafting letters or other responses as necessary, assist the city with preparing for and conducting legally required public hearings within 60 days of its moratorium, and extending the work of specialized legal counsel. Move to approve contracts for legal and subject matter expert consultant services related to BESS.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Murphy. Is there any public comment on this item?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jesse Skarupa. I live up on Snoqualmie Ridge, and I'm the Director of Community Organization for Snoqualmie Valley for Responsible Energy, SVRE. I'm here tonight actually not to raise a concern, but to say thank you. The working group this council has established, bringing together council representatives and members of our community organization, is exactly the kind of collaborative, transparent process that builds trust between residents and their local government. And I want you to know that it is noticed and it's appreciated. The council members who have engaged directly in that process have shown what it looks like to take constituent concerns seriously, not just in words, but in time and in work. That commitment doesn't go unnoticed by the community watching this issue closely. The same is true for our SVRE colleagues who have shown up consistently, done their homework, and kept this process grounded in facts and community interest. What makes this working group worth highlighting is not just that it exists, it's that it's open. Members of the public can attend, they can ask questions, they can watch their neighbors and their elected officials work through a complex issue together. That kind of transparency doesn't happen by accident. It's a choice and it's the right one. We still have hard work ahead, but the foundation being laid here, collaborative, accountable, and community-centered, gives us reason to have genuine confidence. Thank you for that. We'll keep showing up.
Right, any further public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, council, would you, let's see, what we're gonna do on this one. Did you want a discussion? Did you want any information, Councilmember Johnson?
I think I would appreciate City Attorney going through the steps taken and the proposed next steps. Though I think that we, since the motion was to approve those contracts, and I think that those are the ones that are lined out in the slideshow. If we were to take a vote, that we would do that prior to discussion of the moratorium proposed next step, because I think those are kind of two separate things.
Understand, okay.
Okay, yeah. That's fine. Okay. Sorry, it was getting a little late and I got, all right. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
We got a ways to go.
As I think everyone in this room knows, there's a battery energy storage system project application that's been submitted to King County for the Cascadia Ridge Resiliency Energy Storage Project. And that is located in this, not in the city of Snoqualmie, but it's in unincorporated King County in the city of Snoqualmie's urban growth area. So to recap,
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Scaropa, for your comments.
We've had outreach, community outreach regarding this. We've retained specialized outside counsel. Initial comment letters has been sent to King County. There's also been a letter sent to Puget Sound Energy, Washington State Utilities and Transportation Committee. Council adopted a battery energy storage system moratorium ordinance, and staff has been working really hard to identify subject matter experts who will assist the city in understanding this project and any future comment letters that would be submitted. Before you tonight is authorizing the additional $150,000 for outside counsel, and then also contracts for subject matter experts. The city's retained specialized counsel, and the first initial amount authorized was $50,000. The city's already been invoiced for $34,000. So in order to have that legal counsel continue to assist the city in this, it is recommended to authorize the additional $150,000. Additionally, the city staff has started to identify subject matter experts. The main contract is the $91,500 contract for Jensen Hughes, which before you tonight, we are seeking authorization for the mayor to be able to execute that contract as it's above the $50,000 signing threshold that the mayor has. This contract would cover three main areas. Third-party plan review, which includes reviewing the fire protection plan, hazard mitigation analysis, and emergency response plan. The second part is a dispersion study and using engineering consequence modeling tool to evaluate the toxic and flammable gas dispersion hazards. And the third area is a wildland urban interface assessment, which includes a site visit, vegetation management plan, and fire protection plan. In the packet, there are two versions of the contract. The one for that's dated the June date, that's labeled substitute contract, is the one that staff is requesting you authorize the mayor to sign. We were going really fast. So in order to have present for the F&A committee, we had the May contract, and it was explained at the F&A committee that there were anticipated changes, and those changes were made. And so that substitute contract is in the agenda packet. Additionally, staff has identified Landau Associates for stormwater management and noise analysis, and also RH2, which is would analyze the water resources. I believe.
Okay,
Sure.
Councilmember Johnson.
Just actually a process thing now that I think about it. Do we need to do an appropriation before we can do the contract?
Without going into all the details of why, no, you don't.
Okay.
In essence, you have an appropriation for legal services in total. We have not spent all of those and obviously won't till we get towards the end of the year. If you were to authorize this, but not authorize an increased appropriation, we would then have to choose which legal services to cut. But if you end up increasing the appropriation, then that would cover this. But timing wise, you've got time to go through your normal appropriation process. Councilmember Murphy.
So I understand correctly, the what's before us right now is additional or continued legal support from Alcott Council for like just regular course of action, BESS related stuff. And then these three subject matter experts with the idea that they may help us prepare and inform our SEPA response.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, on Agenda Bill 26032, approve contracts for services related to land use and unincorporated UGA. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The agenda bill passes unanimously. Okay. I think now we go to Agenda Bill 26039. Councilmember Johnson.
I wonder if we should, since it's in the same slideshow, discuss the moratorium.
Great. So seeing no objection, City Attorney, would you go ahead and take us through the rest of that explanation, because it will bear on the next agenda bill.
So the next steps regarding is council adopted the battery energy storage system moratorium, and under state law, council, it's required to have a public hearing within 60 days. So in municipal government, 60 days, it sounds really long, but actually moves really fast. So the city's required to have that public hearing on or before July 25th, 2026. Additional things that typically happen either on or immediately after are adopting the work plan and also potentially adopting additional findings. The moratorium that council passed already had a work plan and findings in it, so there's no requirement to adopt a work plan or findings. You can, because that was already in the moratorium, but you could if you wanted to, add additional findings.
And to clarify, you could add additional work plan. You could change what's there, add, subtract, change, both to the findings and to the work plan. But as far as the time that you have to do that, you can take whatever time, because you have done that. It would be a matter of adjusting them in response to the public information you receive in the public hearing.
All right. So part of the conversation that we wanted to have is when to have the public hearing. a couple options. It could be at the regular July 13th council meeting. I know our council meeting agendas are pretty heavy. So at FNA, we also discussed other dates, July 8th, July 14th, or July 15th. Out of the FNA committee, I think there was a preference for July 15th, but that might be a conversation. We're here to support you and whatever date you'd like to have it. And then there's also the agenda for the public hearing. Mayor.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Johnson.
So what I thought I heard was that we do have to hold a public hearing, but that based on what is in the ordinance or in the moratorium ordinance as it stands, there are findings, there is a work plan, so we would not have to take an action. We could. Could we also take an action at some other point within that period to modify what the work plan is and change findings, et cetera?
Right.
So it would not have to occur at that time,
That's correct.
and it could occur at other times. Okay.
Councilmember Washington.
Yes, question to City Attorney Burke. The public hearing, it's 60 days from the point we declared the moratorium,
Yeah, from when it was adopted.
when it was adopted. Okay.
You threw the slide or not?
Yeah, I mean, the next part was I just wanted to summarize kind of the next steps. The team experts analyze the SEPA checklist and prepare additional comments for King County.
With respect to the dates,
Mhm.
so I got a preliminary look at this point as to what's likely on your committee agendas next cycle. Remember, there's an extra week this month, so we're it's not next week, but the week following. Based on the preliminary look, while Parks and Public Works has sort of a normal load, not excessive, but normal, but the other committees look perhaps a little light. So it may be that as you approach, you'll find that you do have time or feel that you have time at the regular council meeting. But perhaps if you could identify the special meeting date, if that was a path you wanted to go, then at least you could all hold that date. And then you could kind of see as you get closer whether you want to leave it on the regular meeting date or go ahead with the special meeting date. Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I think it sounds like we don't have to set a special meeting at the moment. I would wonder if we could proceed under the assumption that it would be at the July 13th meeting. And then if it turns out, oof, maybe that's getting a little bit too heavy, then we could set something as long as it was before, on or before June 25th, July 25th.
Right. And so my hope is that you might identify a date now that council members could hold on their calendars so that if you did have to fall back, that you would have had a date that you could all make, or most of you could make. As you know, the closer you get to any date, the harder it is for everyone to make it. So Councilmember Cotton.
Is there a certain time frame that we need to give notice to the public about the public hearing?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we need to publish it. I believe it's 10 days to publish in the newspaper.
Okay.
So that would be, if we could find out, there's additional time from an administrative lens in terms of, queuing that up with the Seattle Times. So it would be nice to know relatively soon. It's not a regular special meeting where we can just do the 24-hour notice because we have to publish the public hearing in the Seattle Times.
Yeah.
So Councilmember Watton.
Could we plan on the public hearing then on the 13th? And if we have additional council work, we can notice that with 48 hours and make it the 15th. If we're not able to get through the entire agenda. Because it's 10 days for the public hearing related to the moratorium. We're not restricted on regular council items that if we have to push it to the 15th, we could do that with a 48-hour notice.
Yep.
Okay, we're just doing a bunch of math on logistics. So what we can do is this, if you would like, we can, let me back up. By the time your F&A committee meeting happens, when you're looking at the agenda and deciding if you have time, you will be already past the notice date to have it on your regular meeting date. You will not be past the time to notice it for the 15th. Whoops, yes, you will. Hold on.
Do it now.
Yeah. Why does it have to go to F&A?
Well, it's just about the agenda. That's just the agenda.
Just the agenda. Can we put on a request now?
Okay, we have a new idea for you. What you could do is go ahead and make the decision now to hold the public hearing on your regular council date. Decide that now. We'll notice it and that'll all happen. Then if you have more business than that regular meeting date would need, could move that other normal business to a meeting on the 15th, or you would just, in essence, clean up that which you couldn't get to on the regular meeting date on the 13th. So that regular business doesn't require 10-day notice. Requires 24-hour notice, but as a practical matter, let's say two days. So we could figure that out when you have your F&A committee meeting, and then you could decide. So again, if you would decide to hold a date, if the 15th is your date, if you could hold that for a potential special meeting, not for the public hearing, but for other business if needed, and then your F&A committee can make that decision for you once they see the proposed agenda. Councilmember Johnson.
Do we need a motion to, and vote to formally set when the public hearing is, or can we just say?
No, if I see a will of the council, we'll just proceed.
Okay.
All right. So we'll notice the public hearing for the 13th at your regular council meeting, and we will, for now, just hold the 15th as a potential date, and then discuss that with F&A at their first meeting on the 7th?
Yeah.
On the 7th, and then let F&A committee decide for you. If they decide that that's needed, then we'll just go ahead and notice the 15th. If it's not needed, we won't. Okay. That's that. So, sorry, you've got that captured, right? Okay. So that's the public hearing schedule. What else do we need to discuss on your slides?
That was it.
Okay.
We did it.
All right.
Thank
If
you.
there's no other discussion on this item, we'll move on to the next item, which is Agenda Bill 26026. Nope, it's Agenda Bill Agenda Bill 26-039, Ordinance 1329, 2025-26 Budget Amendment, Best Review and Analysis Requests. Let's see, this is coming out of F&A. Councilmember Johnson, this is a first read. Would you please read the introduction?
I will try. The text is a little garbled on this PDF.
Sorry, can we just put that up?
Yeah.
Hold on, we'll put it up for you.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Then we need the introduction part.
Oh, boy. I'll guess.
Huh.
Okay. This amends the 2025-2026 biennial budget. It's the same one here. Biennial budget to provide the city with the appropriation necessary to land use issue. I'm sorry.
Give us just a minute.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read that for you since I have a clean copy.
Sounds good.
This ordinance amends the 2025-2026 biennial budget to provide the city with the appropriation necessary to fund a battery energy storage system response, including legal and consulting support regarding this land use issue.
Council, if I could, we're painfully aware of the software limitation that caused what just happened. This requires I won't go into all the details, requires a software update that we purchased and are about to install. More importantly, we're actually moving off this system because of a bunch of problems with this system. So unfortunately, this just got caught up. We're taking the steps to fix this. It's just taking a little bit of time to get that done. So apologize for that. All right. Let's see. So with that read in, is there any public comment on this item? All right, see none. Council, any discussion? Wait, I'm sorry, hold on.
First read.
Yeah, there's slides.
Council, if it's okay with you, we'll go ahead and go through the slides that support this. And it's Budget Manager Walker again.
Hello again. This amendment is a little bit more straightforward than our last one. It's for $450,000 to respond and learn more about the battery energy storage system that's been proposed. And if you recall, in April, you approved $50,000 for the same land use issue. So that brings us up to a total of about $500,000 that we're estimating to respond to this. And City Attorney Burke really covered what the money will be spent on. So I will just skip over that. But the question that I'm dealing with is, where is the money coming from? We do not have a revenue source, an ongoing revenue source that we can assign to this, nor have we determined that there are any expenditures that we can reduce to pay for this. So what we're proposing is that we use current fund balance. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of what kind of funds exist, these numbers are based on a forecast of where we expect we might end at the end of December 2026. Within our general fund 001, we expect to have 2.88 million. In the reserve fund, which supports the general fund, we would expect to have 2.79 million for a combined fund balance of 5.66 million. Now, we do have a required reserve that's been established by financial management policy of 15 to 20% of our ongoing operating expenses within the general fund, and that is 3.28 million. If you recall from the emergency expenditures that happened from the flood at the end of 2025, we spent some of that responding to the flood, so there may be some reimbursements coming from FEMA. There may not. Time will tell. But that is why the fund balance, the reserve level of 3.28 million that is our goal, is higher than the reserve fund's current balance of 2.79 million, forecasted balance. That leaves us with funds in excess of reserve of $2.38 million, and we would propose using some of that we would propose using $450,000 of that to fund this amendment.
Okay. Any further slides?
That's it.
Okay, Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, there's one part of this that we haven't talked about yet tonight that's going to come up later that wasn't relevant to all the other things. It's the Foster Garvey contract, which is going to be the other bulk of that. The contracts we talked about earlier, I believe, were somewhere around 150,000. So, or am I mentioning the wrong one?
That you've already approved that.
Oh, that was the Foster Garvey.
Yeah. The other legal contract is unrelated to Beth.
Never mind. I'm thinking of a
Yeah,
different
Ogden
one.
Murphy's completely.
Then never mind. I retract my comment. Yeah.
Councilmember Murphy.
I think this might be a question more for the attorney. The 450, can you help? I'm trying to do some of the scratch math based on some of what we just looked at previously, but can you help us get to that number? How do we get there? Thanks.
If I could, it's a great question. I almost jumped in, so thank you for the question. What they did was they built in a little bit of extra room. So the amount that's being asked for appropriation here is greater than the contracts that you've been asked to approve. The reason is we're not going to, can't spend any of this money without coming back and asking you to approve the contracts. So as you're seeing tonight, we have to ask you for the contract. In a situation like this, we have to ask you for the contract and an increased appropriation, which takes 2 readings. And so it's a lot of your time and obviously a lot of staff time to do that. So we thought, let's put some additional headroom in. You still control whether that ever gets spent, but that allows you to control it with a single action of approving a contract or not. Doesn't require you to then additionally go through the appropriation process. Gives you, all of us, a little bit of headroom, not a lot, but a little bit of headroom to work. And it seemed like it's possible that additional items might come up sort of in this range. How did we get the number? As you can see, 500 is a nice round number. So we just sort of roughly said that seems like a reasonable amount of headroom, but there's no science behind it.
Thank you. Clarify.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, due to the import of this particular topic and where these funds are going, I would move that we waive the second reading.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Oh, motion almost died for lack of a second. All right. Motion to amend the motion by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Murphy. Any discussion of the motion to amend? Sorry, correct. It's a motion to suspend the rules requiring us to waive, I'm sorry, it's not even suspend the rules. It's a motion to waive the second reading and adopt on the first reading. Right, seeing no further discussion, Councilmember Watton.
Okay, I'm trying to connect the dots because $500,000 is a lot to me. I mean, it could help us work on other things like affordable housing, but that's not the topic here. It's just, I have to understand, first of all, the urgency of doing it tonight, waiving the second reading. And secondly, is what's all contained in this, because our budget's tight and and unfortunately we're the downstream to what King County's allowed. And that's why we're in this mix we are today.
Councilmember Johnson.
So really, my understanding of what is all entailed is that this would be an appropriation of fund balance to the legal fund. Is that right?
General fund.
General fund, right, okay, but to be used for that purpose. That the amount that we have already decided to do was 150 in the contracts tonight. And then there's another 50,000 from previously that we took action on. And so that leaves over an amount of around $300,000 that is unaccounted for. And the purpose of that is such that if there were more contracts that were that the administration thought would be useful for this subject, that they could bring those to us and we could take it as a single action. Now, this particular topic seems to be something that moves fast sometimes. It seems like it's a slow burn and then something big happens, and then it's a slow burn and then something big happens. So it could be useful if the administration doesn't have to figure out, okay, well, what does this specific thing do to the budget for this $50,000 contract or this $70,000 contract? They could just say, here's the contract. We know that we're within this amount. So at our next council meeting, we could just be ready to go with another contract and at future council meetings, if that were to occur.
Perhaps another way to think about it is think about our legal budget generally. You've appropriated somewhere close to $1 million for the biennium. Sorry, close to 2 million for the biennium. Okay, and close to 2 million for the biennium. It's about close to $1 million a year. You appropriated that for the biennium. Then when we want to spend that on outside counsel, we have to come to you and say, will you approve this contract? Yes, there's small amounts up to 50,000 that I could authorize, but anything over 50,000, I come to you and ask you. And on all things best, I come and ask you so that you're fully in the loop on that and you're making that decision. So the appropriation gives the room to spend that, but the actual spending you still control by deciding whether to approve those contracts. Councilmember Watton.
I move to amend this to $250,000.
So let me suggest, if I could, the following sequence, because you actually don't have a motion on the floor. So perhaps
About to
you
do
make
that,
a
yeah.
motion, and then Councilmember Watton could make a motion to amend that to a different amount.
I think we do, I'm sorry, Mayor.
As you remember, there's a motion to amend and not a motion. It doesn't actually kind of work, because remember that we never made a motion here first read, so all we did was read in the introduction. So you would need a motion to adopt this, then you could amend that motion. Yeah?
I don't think so.
Okay, hold on.
Don't we have to do the motion to?
Yeah.
Councilmember Tessman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To your point, Councilmember Watton, I think you want to feel good on the numbers, right?
Right.
And so certainly would look for correction if my understanding is incorrect, but on AB 26032, we approved the appropriation of three contracts totaling 241.5. The request here is to true up the legal fund essentially by 450,000, right? So you're concerned about a headroom of 241.5 is the heart of your concern?
Okay, if you'll bear with me, let's get the motions in order and then you could continue your discussion. I think the city attorney might have, I think he's planning to try and help you with the numbers as well. Councilmember Johnson.
Okay, based on what I think the administration believes that we're supposed to do, I would move to approve the ordinance amending the 2025-2026 biennial budget.
Point of order.
Councilmember Watton.
I believe that the first thing is we're suspending the second reading.
Second reading.
And then we're coming back to the
Voting.
motion, and then we can deliberate the motion. Is that correct?
You can't do it in that order. You have to have a
Okay.
motion first and
I-
then waive the second reading of that motion.
Okay.
You don't even, I could have ruled that out of order, but I thought you would get there on your own, so I probably should have done that. I apologize, but you can't make a motion about a motion that isn't there, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll rule the previous motion by Councilmember Johnson, not the one he just made, the previous motion out of order, because there was no motion on the floor for him to amend or to suspend the rules on. And so now we have council members' motion here to adopt, this motion to adopt this on a first read. Is that correct, council member?
Can I do those two things to do it as?
Can.
Okay, then yes.
So let me restate. Your motion is to adopt this ordinance
Right.
and suspend the second read and adopt it on the first read.
Correct.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay, the motion dies for lack of a second. We move on to the next item on the agenda. Councilmember Watton.
Let me get my notes set.
You're good.
I'd like to make the motion on which ordinance?
Ordinance 1329.
AB 26-039.
39.
Ordinance 1329 and with appropriation of $250,000.
And did you want to waive
And
the second
waive
read
the second reading
and adopt tonight on first read?
and adopt tonight on the first reading. Thank you very much for the notes.
Second.
Is motion by Councilmember Watton, second by Councilmember Washington. And just hold on, I just want to make sure we've got this captured. Okay, well. Second was Councilmember Washington.
Yes.
Yes.
Seconded by Councilmember Washington.
All right, if council's amenable, I think we have a couple trying to provide you some numbers to help you kind of think this through. Did you want? You may, Council City Attorney.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm gonna step outside of my comfort zone and talk about numbers. Just a second, I wanted to share my screen again. So just to, sorry about that, let me just. So to recap the contract amounts, the outside counsel request was for 150,000. The Jensen Hughes contract is for almost 100,000, so we're at almost 250,000. Landdown Associates was 15,000, and then the city water resource analysis was 35,000. So this is 291,500. So let's just say 300,000 for easy math. So the 450,000 is basically a wiggle room or cushion of 150,000. We don't know yet what these experts are going to come back with. They may come back and discover something and say, we really want to look at this, which then increases their contract scope. They may recommend that there's other subject matter experts that we should go out and hire. This is one of those things for staff to be able to respond at the urgency that it appears that council desires, and we want to be able to move quickly. And so that was why we put that cushion in there.
City Attorney, if I could just clarify, does the 150 for Foster Garvey include, is it a new maximum of 150 or is it a new 150 above the existing contract of 50?
It's above the original 50, so it'd be, the total would be 200,000.
Right, so therefore, going back to your numbers, the total is not 3, but 350. Right?
Right, I see what you're saying.
So therefore, there's 150 of what I was calling headroom left. Okay, Councilmember Washington.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. You got to explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old because I'm lost at 240. Where are
Okay,
we coming out with the other?
Would it be all right if I asked City Attorney to go back through those numbers again?
Please, slowly.
Slowly.
Thank you.
And this time, make sure to include the 50 already
Right.
for Foster Garvey so they can see each of the pieces and see how it adds up.
Right, so originally there was 50,000 for Foster Garvey. Staff is requesting an additional 150, which would bring that total to 200.
Question there.
Councilmember Washington.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That we previously approved.
Yes,
Is that, okay. So that was the 50,000 that we previously approved.
correct.
Okay.
Not
Sorry.
in this.
Hold on.
potential.
All right, council, we just clarified a couple things to make sure we're getting this right. So first off, the 50,000 that I was raising, you already covered that with a separate appropriation.
Okay.
So you don't need to consider that tonight. I was getting confused between the notion of a contract maximum and an appropriation. You've already appropriated that 50.
Okay.
So the new appropriation that I think you're considering tonight are going to be these items that city attorney will now go through. Is that okay if she starts that list? Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
All right, thank you for your.
But we'll go slowly.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the first is the 150,000 for outside counsel. And then the Jensen Hughes contract is 91,500. So let's just say 100,000, you're at about 250,000.
Correct.
Landau Associate Stormwater Management Noise Analysis is 15,000. And City Water Resources Analysis is 35,000. So that brings us to almost 300,000 or 291,500. And so this is the 450,000 budget amendment. So there's about 150,000 in contingency because we don't know what's going to happen next. And it takes a lot of staff effort to bring a budget amendment forward, do the 2 readings. So we wanted to have that cushion to be able to have the flexibility to perhaps contract with another subject matter expert or pivot in terms of the city's response to this.
Councilmember Watton.
Just remember, we are waiving the second reading tonight. So if we find that we come back in 2 weeks where we have more need than what we've anticipated, we can do that. And secondly is we've already appropriated 50,000. So the stormwater management and city water resources, those amount up to 50,000. We can come back in 2 weeks and appropriate between that, or we can pull it from the outside council's additional money that we're allocating tonight.
So just so you
Unless I'm
know,
not understanding that correctly.
right, so the total contracts you previously authorized us to sign is 291,500. If you only appropriate 250, we will not be able to sign all those contracts because we do not have appropriation allowed to cover that. So we would need at least the 291,500 to cover what you've already authorized tonight. Councilmember Johnson.
I believe that the 50,000 was appropriated to cover the previous contract from months ago. Is that
That's correct. And we've received invoices for about 35 or so on that.
Yeah. To date, we've received invoices for 34,000. That attorney is continuing to work. So basically, I've discussed the $50,000 with him. So basically, if you'd like outside counsel to continue working on this, we're going to need additional funds.
So the 15 plus the 35 isn't that 50,000? That's
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cotton.
I'd like to amend the motion to raise the amount to 300,000.
Second. Okay, motion, hold on. Yep, motion to amend the motion by Councilmember Cotton, seconded by Councilmember Murphy. Any discussion on the motion to amend the amount to, Councilmember Cotton, what was the amount?
Still 300,000.
300,000.
From the director?
I think he's just,
Well, I'm happy to pull open an Excel file, for example. So Dina, if you wanted to,
Oh, yeah.
certainly.
if the mayor wants.
Yeah, depending on.
Okay.
let's let him do that,
That's
because that's what was asked, and then we'll.
So this is currently what we're looking at.
Counts. So I think I've got Washington, Testman, and then Murphy.
So,
Councilmember Washington.
thank you. So the motion on the table is to amend for 300,000. If that were to be approved, then potentially the administration may come back to us at another point in time, probably pretty soon, for our third-party counsel for monies to pay for those contracts. Is that correct?
No, we would only come back to you if we needed to raise some of these contract amounts. It's just that we would have to come back to you with multiple actions. We'd have to ask for a contract increase and ask for an appropriation increase. So it's just a lot more work.
Okay.
Councilmember Tessman.
Right, so I understand we want to be good fiduciaries, right? And I guess the item of consternation here is how much leeway we give, but the protection is these are appropriations, but we still have to approve the obligation, right? So our check is the obligation. However, what we're building in, particularly if we waive a second reading rather, what we're building in is speed, responsiveness, without essentially losing control. So I would just highlight that for the council.
Councilmember Murphy.
Yeah, and I'm maybe a little slow coming to that realization as well. And I see Councilmember Johnson smiling over there because he, I think, came to that realization before the rest of us about 20 minutes ago. But I'm of the similar belief that, listen, this is real money here, and we have to be very cautious with respect to the spending, especially in the environment that we find ourselves in, right? But given the speed with which this issue is moving through the community, but also through the process, right? And the unknowns with respect to, okay, how quickly are we need to pull these analyses together? I think we may not have the luxury, our attorney may not have the luxury to come back to us and say, hey, we need more, or we need more authorization, right? We still have the check with respect to the contract. So that's kind of where I'm feeling right now in terms of, I feel comfortable with respect to a greater cushion perhaps than the one that, we're talking about. But yeah, I wish I had come to that conclusion 20 minutes ago.
Councilmember Tessman.
I guess my only question for you, Director, would be if we make this appropriation, right, we're adding money to the legal fund that was never originally anticipated. If the expenses don't come to fruition, is there a way, do we have a mechanism, an existing mechanism to claw that back?
Yeah, let me try and take that for you. In all your appropriation in the general fund, in the operating funds, we never spend 100% of what you appropriate. We never spend more because we're not allowed by law to do so. Therefore, there's an amount you've authorized us to spend. And as you can imagine, we don't come out to the penny on that authorization that you gave us for an entire 2-year period. So we're always a bit under budget. We try not to ask for more budget, for more appropriation than we need. So 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago now, when you approved the appropriation, that was, there's a whole process you went through and that the administration went through at the time to come up with what they asked for and for you to decide to appropriate that. We never spend all of that. What happens is anything that is not, that you appropriate for the biennium, anything that is not spent by the end of the biennium, we're no longer authorized to spend. That just goes back to fund balance and becomes something that's available for your control. As you saw earlier, we talked about the fund balance that's there. That can't be used without your authorization. So there's really no clawback. It just, if we don't spend it, the spending authority, all you're giving us in this is a spending authority, and that spending authority just ceases to exist, evaporates, it's gone. It's a time-based authorization.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
All right, so this is first a process thing. So I believe that for those of you who know the Jurassic Parliament, we've got the big dinosaur and we have one little dinosaur.
You do.
So we could have one more little dinosaur.
Please don't do that. Please just let this one go through and then make another one. You can. It's your choice, Councilmember.
Okay.
Live risky.
All right. Any further discussion on the amendment to lower the amount to 300,000? Seeing no further discussion on the motion to amend to 300,000, All those in favor of that amendment say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Hey,
The nays have it. The amendment is not passed. So now we're back to the base amendment, or sorry, the base motion. So hold on.
I'm gonna need names to know who they are.
Who made the motion?
No, the names. I
Oh,
need them.
sorry, the nays were Councilmember Cotton.
No.
She was a yay.
The yays.
You need the yeas or the nays?
Either one.
Either one.
There was two,
Yay.
sorry, yays. I apologize. There were two yays, which is Councilmember Cotton and Councilmember Watton.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're back. So let's just be clear where we're at. We're back to the base motion, which is a motion to,
It was 250 previous.
it's a motion to adopt this ordinance with an amount of $250,000 and waive second reading and adopt tonight on first read. That's the motion on the floor now. Councilmember Johnson.
Move to change the amount to 450,000.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Murphy. Any discussion? All right, so on the motion to amend the amount to 450,000, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, that motion passes. So now the amended motion on the floor is to pass the ordinance on first read, waiving the second read in an amount of 450,000. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to,
Point of order, just as you're shuffling
your point.
papers. Do we need to extend tonight's
Not yet.
council meeting?
Not yet.
At 9:30? Is it 9:30?
10 o'clock. Hold on.
Usually it's 10 o'clock.
It's cut off at 10, so at 9:30.
I think you have to extend it to 10. The rules are at 10.
Can you just give me?
Just hold on. You don't need to do what I think you were thinking, but there is something you may want to do. So let us just be sure, get to the bottom of it.
For the taxpayers, this is a really good deal because you get extra earnings from the council.
All right, council. Councilmember Watton, under your rules of procedure, any council member at 9:30 may call for a reconsideration of the remaining items and prioritization of them of the remaining items on the calendar, or sorry, on the agenda. So if you wish to do that, you may.
Push forward.
Councilmember Washington.
So will we need to extend the meeting at
You'll
10?
decide at 10.
Okay, so at 10 o'clock, we will have to
You'll be
make a
done or you
decision.
won't, and
Yep.
you'll decide to extend or not.
Okay.
Just to be clear, items, if you do not extend, whatever items you don't get to, just automatically roll to your next meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Next item is agenda bill. Let me make sure I know where I'm at. Next item is the consent agenda. An item usually that we take up well before 9:30. All right. Consent agenda contains approval of the city council meeting minutes dated May 26th, 2026, approval of the city council special meeting minutes dated May 29th, 2026, and approval of the claims report dated June 28th, 2026. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, please disregard what I previously read. There are two items on the consent agenda. Approval of the claims report dated June 22nd, 2026, and Agenda Bill 26-026, Amendment to ILA for Fire and EMS Service to Echo Glen Children's Center. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
Go.
moved.
Moved by
Second.
Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Washington. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Moving on to the next item, which is second read of Agenda Bill 26-024, Ordinance 1323, Covered Loads. This comes out of the Public Safety Committee, which I believe is Councilmember Watton. Would you please read the introduction and motion as it is a second read?
Yes, thank you. The city has seen an increase in community outreach regarding the escaping of dirt, sand, and gravel hauled in trucks on city streets. Escaping material from trucks has damaged the property of other motorists and leaves debris on the roadway. The city seeks to require all loads to be covered when operating within the city. I move to adopt ordinance 1323, chapter 10.29, covered loads. Do I have a second?
So, second.
Moved by Councilmember Watton, second by Councilmember Washington. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, council, is there any discussion of this item? See, Councilmember Watton.
The only thing I'd say is last Friday, I was following two trucks, both with uncovered loads. And I was over in North Bend this morning and the same thing. And the warning is that if you have uncovered loads, cover them up. It takes about another minute and a half to do. And this helps to ensure it, and Washington State Patrol is helping with enforcement. If you haven't noticed, on the Parkway, that's why they're out there. They're trying to make sure that we put covers on loads.
All right, seeing no further discussion. All those in favor, Agenda Bill 26024, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ordinance is passed. Next item is Agenda Bill 26-025, Ordinance 1324, E-Motorcycle Amendment, also out of Public Safety Committee. Councilmember Watton, would you please read the introduction and motion as this is a second read?
The city of Snoqualmie passed ordinance 1315 on December 8th, 2025, regulating the use of electric motorcycles. That ordinance defined and set requirements for operating in the city limits. This ordinance amends by adding clarifying language for operator licensing requirements. I move to approve ordinance number 1324, adding section 2 under 10.36.020. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Watton, second by Councilmember Washington. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, council discussion, Councilmember Watton.
Thank you. This is simply adding the wording of no person without a valid driver's license and a motorcycle endorsement may operate an electric motorcycle. That means if you're under the age of 16, get off the darn thing, go back onto your bicycle and ride it instead. But unfortunately, we've had a lot of kids doing this. And so yes, parents, please help us out with this. The last thing we want are our officers impounding that e-motorcycle.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Agenda Bill 26025, adopting ordinance 1324, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ordinance is adopted. Next item is Agenda Bill 26-029, Ordinance 1325, Animal Cruelty Amendment. This comes out of the
Public safety.
This comes out of Public Safety. So Councilmember Watton, will you please read the introduction and motion? This is a second read.
The current Snoqualmie Municipal Code on Animal Cruelty, Chapter 9.20, was adopted in 1903 in the Wayback Machine. The city's Animal Cruelty Code is outdated and no longer applicable to animal cruelty enforcement or general animal care and control. So I move to approve ordinance 1325, repealing Snoqualmie Municipal Code 9.20 and reaffirming Snoqualmie Municipal Code 6.04, animal control adopted in 1986 and 1998, which includes Title 11 of the King County Code.
Second.
Thank you.
Moved by Councilmember Watton, second by Councilmember Washington. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, council, any discussion?
This simply
Councilmember Watton.
cleans up the code.
Councilmember Watton.
Thank you. Simply cleans up the code.
All right, seeing no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Agenda Bill 26029, adopting ordinance 1325, is passed unanimously. Next item is, I think, Public Safety Committee. Any further reports?
We've had enough tonight. Thank you.
I believe that the next item is two informational items from Community Development Committee. Councilmember Washington.
Yes, so the first bullet point there, sign deviation request. Oh, let's see, I got a quick blurb on it. So the CD committee reviewed two separate applications for deviation from the Snoqualmie Ridge sign standards. Both applications received approval for their requests. The first application came from Microconics, located within the Snoqualmie Ridge Business Park. Their 65 square feet wall sign was approved. 65 square feet. The second application was from Snoqualmie Valley Health. The hospital requested and received approval for a deviation from the Snoqualmie Ridge 2 development standards regarding sign number, size, and height. Their approval package includes 5 wall signs for the new hub building and 8 monument signs for campus wayfinding. Notably, this includes 2 20-foot monument signs along Snoqualmie Parkway, one at the northwest quadrant of Southeast 99th Street, and the second just south of the new hub building driveway. These signs are essential for directing patients to the campus and the emergency room while navigating the new complex intersection design. Let's see. The second bullet point is regarding our sign code amendment, and a quick blurb on that. Mr. Mayor Mayhew and city staff identified a broader issue with our current overall sign code. Currently, the city's code does not reflect our court rulings on the First Amendment speech and Washington state constitutional guarantees. As a result, the CD committee referred this task over to the Planning Commission to start working on the necessary sign code updates. And that's all we have from CD committee, Mr. Mayor.
All right, moving on to Parks and Public Works. First item is Agenda Bill 26-036, approval to execute Sandy Cove contract. Councilmember Cotton, will you please read the introduction and motion?
This agenda bill seeks approval to award the construction contract to Goodfellow Brothers LLC for Phase 2 of the Sandy Cove Park Riverbank Restoration and Outfall Project. The proposed motion is to award a construction contract to Goodfellow Brothers LLC for Phase 2 of the Sandy Cove Riverbank, and then mine cuts off too. I'm assuming it's the restoration and outfall project.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Cotton, seconded by Councilmember Washington. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, council, is there any discussion? Councilmember Murphy.
Mayor, I'm wondering if staff could perhaps walk the full council through some of the timeline and some of the urgency that was brought towards Parks and Public Works. I think that's important context for council members to absorb as it relates to this project.
Absolutely. Director, Mr. Gamble. This is our CIP manager in Parks and Public Works, Dylan Gamble.
Good evening. Yes, I can give you the quick rundown of the timelines and intensity of this project. So as many of you know, Sandy Cove Park, just a few blocks from here, has a large riverfront section on the Snoqualmie River. That section between what we oftentimes have considered Sandy Cove, which is the grass area. That grassy area has about a 10-foot, and some places a bit more, drop down to the river under its current conditions right now, which is summer. But as you all know, it floods, that level comes up. There's a lot of erosion essentially that is happening as the river channelizes, moves, and is moving sediment downstream. What that does is causes the bank to destabilize and fall in. Recently, we've had several trees that have gone in. That further increases this erosion effect. As we lose any sort of grasses or trees, we lose a lot of roots in those retaining structures. So this project here is proposed to do a much stronger than a tree would do armoring restoration work, and includes 2 larger spurs and a lot of rock structuring that was much more long-term in its stability. This will benefit the outfalls that we have there for our entire downtown stormwater system, as well as maintain the park and its current, well, not current alignment, but the alignment that will be such when the armoring is complete. The intensity of that is that we've seen a lot of impacts from recent floods. Most recently, the flood that happened in December, we saw both the impacts to the phase 1 project as well as to just the region and as a whole. It's going to be happening. It's going to continue to happen. This project is intended to maintain our park. So,
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah. So out of 8 bids that were received, this was the lowest. Given what I've seen since I moved to Snoqualmie and just watching that park disappear before our very eyes year after year, rather shocking if you think back to what it looked like a few years ago. If I thought there was any way that this would come down by a statistically significant amount, then I would ask for this to go back for more bids, but I don't have any evidence that that would be the case. So I am in support.
Councilmember Murphy.
Yeah, I think echoing that, my understanding is that delaying significantly only increases the cost, right? And increases the scope of work that's before us here. I'm wondering though, could you help us understand the window of when this work would commence and that narrow window of opportunity? Because that was very compelling when you shared that with us at Public Works.
yeah, absolutely. So as many of you know, I've used a phrase called the fish window. That's the kind of colloquial term. It is essentially the constructability window that we have in this region where anadromous fish could be impacted either by turbidity, water quality, direct impacts. That window is July 15th to October 1st. There's a little bit of wiggle room that they will sometimes give us in the tail end of that work if the weather is cooperative. That is very dependent. And so we are going to be moving tons and thousands of tons of rock and rock adjacent materials. So smaller rock, bigger rock, coarse falls. Over the course of that timeline, I was doing some fast math. It is more than 20 tons of just moving rock, which is probably somewhere in the territory of 1,500 truck loads in just a few weeks. And that's not counting any of the other materials that are in there. So it is just tonnage of rock. So it's a pretty significant work in a very restricted timeline.
Councilmember Murphy, follow-up?
Just a recognition for this work that you all have done on this project. I think this has been a tough one, and whenever a project comes in over, it's a tough conversation to have with any council. And I thought your team, Director Hamlin, and yourself handled it really, really well. And I thought walked us through a very reasonable path forward here. So I really commend the Parks and Public Works team on this one. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
And just building off of that, this has been something of a generational project in terms of our staff. I first started following what the council was doing in 2018, before I got on the planning commission, before I got onto the council, and it has at least been going on for that long. So this is a very long process. The Snoqualmie River is a fairly substantial waterway. So any kind of thing you want to do to it involves the federal government. And so this was a massive lift. So I am very excited to see this finally getting done.
Chair Cotton, I did hear from Councilmember Holloway, who's not here tonight, a request that his concern that the proposed work go back for further consideration to the Parks and Public Works Department. He wanted that to be shared. Perhaps you could speak to that. I know you all spoke about that at committee. So I've now shared that he has that view, but I think perhaps you could speak to your own, what the committee's point of view was.
I don't think we felt that it needed to go back to committee, that we've gone over this, as has been reiterated by council members enough times, and we have to hit our window of July 15th. So while I respect what Councilmember Holloway has to say, it's not going to be happening.
Councilmember Murphy.
I think we discussed heartburn around the overage and the cost, and the heartburn is still there. I think seeing the alternatives of delay and the short construction window, and that if we really don't take good advantage of that this summer, we risk having this cost even more going forward. So I think this is the best option before us. And while, yeah, I respect Council Member Holloway's point of view, and I share some of his concern, I think moving forward to me is the most prudent option tonight.
Right. See no further discussion. All those in favor of Agenda Bill 26036, approval to execute Sandy Cove contract, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Agenda Bill 26036 passes unanimously. Next item is Agenda Bill 26031, approval to execute capital program contracts. Councilmember Cotton, would you read the introduction and motion, please?
A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute contracts for previously appropriated capital programs and specifically identified in Exhibit A. And the proposed motion is to adopt resolution number 1747, authorizing execution of the contracts identified in Exhibit A for previously
Appropriated capital.
appropriated.
All right, is motion, is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Cotton, second by Councilmember Washington. Is there any public comment on this item? See none. Council, is there any discussion? See none. Those in favor of Agenda Bill 26031, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Agenda Bill 26031 passes unanimously. Next item is Agenda Bill 26040, 2027 to 2033 Transportation Improvement Plan. Councilmember Cotton, would you please read the introduction and motion?
Each year, the city adopts an updated 6-year transportation improvement plan, the TIP, which is required for eligibility for state and other grant and other funding. Following public hearing and council approval, the TIP is planned for submission to WashDOT by the deadline of June 30th, 2026. Move to approve an updated 2027-2032 6-year transportation improvement program.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Cotton, seconded by Councilmember Washington. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Council, is there any discussion on this item? Councilmember Johnson.
Very small thing on the motion. This could be a Scrivener's thing, or maybe it doesn't even matter, but it says Transportation Improvement Program. Should it say plan? Where's program? Okay.
We'll correct it to the correct word.
Good catch.
All right. See no further discussion. All those in favor of Agenda Bill 26-040, 2027 to 20 Transportation Improvement Plan, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion passes unanimously. Agenda Bill 26-040 is adopted. Next item on the agenda is Agenda Bill 26-038, approval to execute contract for legal services with Ogden Murphy Wallace. Councilmember Johnson, would you please read the motion, the introduction and motion?
Yes. Ogden Murphy Wallace is a legal services firm that provides a breadth of municipal-related legal services, assisting help with specialty projects and capacity supporting the in-house legal team. This amendment increases the contract amount by $50,000 to $100,000 in total. Move to authorize a contract amendment for Ogden Murphy Wallace Legal Services.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Watton. Is there any public comment on Agenda Bill 26-038? Seeing none. Council, is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Agenda Bill 26-038 is unanimously adopted. Next item on the agenda is, I believe, an informational item. Councilmember Johnson.
Yes, the flood event update is that there is no update. Excellent. And no further report from FNA.
All right, Council, due to the late hour, it is your decision, but I would suggest I hold my mayor's report till your next meeting. Seeing no disagreement. We'll move on to director's reports. Director's reports were in your agenda bill, in your agenda packet. And please have a look at those. These are much more condensed and hopefully useful. Please give us any feedback, information that you don't need that's there, or information you wish you had that isn't there, and we're happy to update those going forward. And certainly, of course, answer any questions that you have. Feel free to contact directors or send any questions through me, and we'll get you answers. With that, moving on to commission committee liaison reports. Are there any commission or committee liaison reports? Seeing none. That brings us to the end of our agenda. There being no further business on the council agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Murphy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. This meeting is adjourned.